I can't even see. Okay. I was like, I can't even see the mouse. It's gonna be a tough one today. All right, thank you. It's gonna be a tough one for vision. It is what it is. All praise to the Most High. Yeah. All right. Let's all right. Let's get YouTube up and going, and then we can. Or I'm sorry, Facebook up and going rather than we can get in. Ooh, man, a lot of stuff going on. So if I miss you guys, it's tough on a Q&A day. But if I miss you guys, I'm gonna try to get here. Hopefully those, I know we had a couple of antagonists who were pushing and pushing. I told them they can come on today if they want to go ahead and have actual genuine conversations. So we'll see if they pop up. Everybody always talking and then nobody shows up. It's Q&A day. All right. All right. Let's get Facebook up and then we'll be ready to go. Podcast is ready. Okay. We got them going. Alrighty. Just got to get Facebook up and then we can get started. Thank you for your patience. Mm. Shalom, how you doing, Sister Beth? Right? Beth, right? Liz, right? Beth. I'm trying to call you Beck. I know that's not right. We got Sister Beck on the other side of things on another platform. All right, so I'm gonna try to shift this where everybody hopefully can see me. I really can't see what you guys see at all. So I'm hoping this is turning out well. I got the sun right in my eyes. Okay, what are we doing? Sorry. Okay. And you guys said it was the 22nd, right? I'm all over the place. Yeah, 22nd. Okay. Okay, I think we finally got it, y'all. I think we finally got it together. At least most of it. We can do the rest as we go. All praises to the Most High, y'all. Thank you again for your patience and everything. Okay. Come on, come on, come on. All right. Okay, I think we, let's see, double checking. So like I said, I apologize. I'm gonna try my best to catch everybody best I can. Sun is right in my eye. I know it's Q&A session day. And I'm be honest, I'm so disheveled right now. I really kind of recall even the questions the person sent in to me. So I feel kind of bad about that. I know normally we would make sure we lead off with the guys. I can only recall one question off the top of my head. So you guys might have to, there was somebody who asked me something specific and didn't want to know my name. Okay. I recall two questions. Okay. I feel like there's another one. I know there's somebody else that I'm actually supposed to be doing a whole Patreon thing just for them. So I'll wait on that. But yeah, okay. Let's make sure we got all this stuff going. Okay. All right. We're going to go with what we got. Come on. All right. We're going to go with what we got. Oh, sorry. One last thing, though. Okay. All right. Everything else, it is what it is. We're going to go with what we got. Let me close this up so I don't get no bugs in the bag. I don't like bugs climbing inside the bag. That's one of the worst things. You think you finished, and then all of a sudden you go inside, there's some kind of weird animal inside. Ugh. Comes with the territory, things you don't think about normally. They haven't been outside normally for a while. We just kind of get back into the swing of things with that. So, alrighty, cool. All right. Hopefully we got everybody. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being on with us. I apologize for my tardiness. We go a little longer anyways on Thursday, so we'll probably go to about 11:30ish, maybe 11:45ish, just because I'm obviously running extremely late. So we'll go ahead and get started. Tada, thank you everybody for being on. Let us begin. Come on, let us forget something. Like barefoot, so I gotta make sure I'm not landing on these pine cones. They're all over the place. Okay. All right. All right, here we go for real. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yehovah's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, wasaya nikituya, wahaya, I see you, minut, wagwan, kamsa, kamsamida, aloha, ciao, ensemble, privet, habarigani, akwaba, madase, etesen, jambu, bibini kofi, in the fry kukatan the wewe, bokuto, bokuta, greetings, grand rising, bakbarata, barakalat shem yahaba, anai, kuvai, kuchilit, tzibis Christ, mashalam khe, shalom, atbarak, fam. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, loving the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being patient with me. I tried to send out messages once again to let everybody know we were running behind, or I was running behind, some things we had to take care of family-wise just to make sure we were straight. So now that we are straight and now that we're on, thank you again, once again, for your patience. Sorry for making you wait. And our goal is to make sure we get into this Q&A. Very quick announcements. Well, first of all, thank you to Elder Anais. I did reach out to her, let her know I probably wasn't going to be on the prayer line. So if there are things that I need to be made aware of, I will get to those things ASAP and check on you guys and be in touch and agreeing with you guys. Thank you for those who made it to the prayer line. Other than that, we are, you know what, matter of fact, I'm going to just go ahead and make it official. Tonight, if you're able to join us, we're going to have a meeting, 9 p.m. New York time. I'm going to make sure everybody's aware of it. We like everybody to be on, especially if you're in the Northeast region, Carolinas, Georgia region, Florida region. If you are in SOC West, Oklahoma, Texas, Mexico, Alabamian region, which is, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. I'm probably forgetting somebody. We got a whole bunch of persons besides in the world, but we got some international already going for Saturday. We're going to have more. Matter of fact, I got some announcements for that too, and we'll talk about that this evening. But if you can make it, if you're in any of those spots, we're going to meet up 9 p.m. New York time. I'm just going to give out a bunch of information, but we want to make sure that we're on point with certain things and make sure that we're not moving too fast and make sure that we do things decent and in order as far as the chain of command. So if you can join us, feel free to. We'd love to have you. We want to make sure that we discuss some big things that are already starting to happen, and we want to make sure that they happen according to the word, according to scripture, according to how we do things at SOC. And so if you're able to join us for that, feel free. Outside of that, this evening, we'll have our live session at 8 p.m. New York time, #Real Talk session at 8 p.m. New York time. And we'll have something on Patreon for you guys as well, for the Book of Jasher and for SOC University. And then tomorrow, besides all the stuff that we have going on, sisters, if you can recall women's meeting at 7 p.m. New York time tomorrow. And if you would like to get up early, you don't have to, but if you'd like to get up early, I'm going to be on with Pastor Yomi. We're going to have some conversations, some dialogue back and forth concerning kingdom, concerning, some questions that persons might have about church versus, kingdom of heaven, or, what we would say kingdom of heaven, but church, let's say church versus Hebrew Israelite faith, things of that nature. Is going to be early, but it will be recorded. It'll be at 6 a.m. New York time. So if you'd like to be able to participate in that, be on with us for that. It'll be on YouTube only. Maybe we'll Maybe you'll be able to hear it on TikTok, but I don't make any promises about that. It'll be on YouTube only. So if you want to join us, that'll be early. I'll make sure I'll put it out. We'll have the email and the announcements and all that together for you guys. But that will be tomorrow. And then of course we have our international meeting and everything back up on Saturday. Men's meeting has been shifted to Saturday. We were supposed to do it last Saturday. We're going to do it this Saturday, just as a reminder to the brothers. Alrighty, I think that's about it. All praises to the Most High Yah. Alrighty, so thank you all. We appreciate you. We appreciate you so very much. We're going to go ahead and get ready to get started. So if you're able to rise to your feet in reverence of Yahweh's word, we're getting ready to do our Bible pledge, and we're going to jump right in. And once again, thank you guys who've been participating in the shout-outs. We've been pretty diligent so far in making sure that we've been catching everybody on the shout-out stuff and getting information. So prayerfully, we'll see you guys for that soon. How you doing, Minister Morale? So let me say shalom to everybody real quick. If you're able to rise to your feet once again in reverence of Yahweh's word, or however you are able to reverence the word of Yah, we thank you for doing so in advance. Let me check out and see who's here. Once again, my apologies. It's really difficult to see you guys today. The sun is right in my eyes, but I'm gonna do my best. Let's see. How you doing, Sister Renee, Sister Mika? Also, Sister Renee, I apologize. I meant to text you yesterday, but life started life, and I'm gonna try and reach out to you. How you doing, Sister Beck, Callum, Sister Judith, Sister Danielle, Brother Keith, Sister Carla, Prince. Sure, we can try to talk some about that. Just give me a second. Or even about Thomas. Okay, yeah, so we can talk about that. We have a couple others at least that are in front of you. I want to make sure I get to. Let's see. Everybody on all platforms, by the way, thank you so much for being on. How you doing, Aaron? Hopefully all is well. All things are getting better. Let's see, we got Aaron, Minister Real, Vanny, I'm still not sure how to say it. I apologize. King Knock, is it? Thanks for being part of the community. Patience is a virtue. All praises to the Most High. Tada. Okay. Let's see, Jonal. And Brother Dennis. I think I saw Cole. I'm pretty sure I saw Brother Cole on there. Darius, Sister Beth, Amon, Jennifer. Thank y'all for the repost, for the likes, subscribes, hit the notification tab, donations, all that great stuff you guys do. We thank you so much for being on with us. I see Sister Jennifer, Jonal, Minister Raj. All praises to the Most High. How you doing, big Brother Thomas? Going to be trying to contact Pastor Hamilton today, see if we can get some motion going on later this year over the D. So we're excited. We do, by the way, we did get 100%. We will be in Detroit May 30th, which is a Saturday, I believe, for the feast of for what we call Pentecost, right? So we will be there. Got that official. So we got the paperwork done. We put the down payment on there, all that great stuff. So we doing big things over there. We'll be there. I think it sits 64 persons. So we're gonna do our thing, and we'll be ready. How you doing, Red M? James, Davy Lee, and if I miss anybody, once again, charge to my head, not to my heart, especially with the light in my eye. I apologize. I'm gonna try to catch as much as I can, but let's see. Am I gonna prepare for the snowstorm? I mean, we always prepared as is, pretty much. I'm not sure where exactly, which one, but yeah, we always prepare. So it is what it is. You know, you can only prepare for so much, but yeah, try to make sure vehicles are warmed up, got your salt, blah blah. Shoveled up afterwards. Try to stay inside, make sure it's warm. Hopefully you guys that are going to be going through some things, you'll be prepared to do the same. I'm going to be honest with you, though, I don't even know if there's a snowstorm supposed to hit today. I'm not even aware of it. I had to look it up. But I looked up the weather before we got started today to make sure it was acceptable. So, and how you doing, Sister Taylor? Thank y'all. Appreciate you. How you doing, Domo? How you doing, Sister Monica? Alrighty. So hopefully I caught as many persons as we could. We're going to go ahead and get ready to say our Bible pledge as we always do. So let's go ahead and get ready real quick. Okay, so we should be ready to go. Once again, we honor you in your presence. Thank you for being on with us. We're going to get started, and I'll start with a couple of the questions that were asked to me, that were sent in to me. If there's, like I said, today's a wild start to the day for me, at least as far as just preparation is concerned. So just keep us in prayer. We're doing fine. Everything's fine. Just busy. So my apologies for running late, but we'll try to get to everybody as much as we can And thank you for being on. Thank you for your patience. All right, if you can, put your right hand on your Bible or your device in the air and just repeat after me. This is my Bible, this is my sword, and this will I trust. For Yahshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible, and this is Yahshua. Hashem Yechavach. Amen. Hashem, his name is authority. Let it be done unto us. You may be seated or go back to what you're doing in the presence of the Most High Yah. All right, as a reminder, so this is going to be Q&A session for us today. In the midst of our Revelation series, we'll be getting back into Revelation chapter 6, verse 1 on Saturday. But today and tomorrow, every other Thursday and Friday, we do Q&A session where we allow persons to ask questions, give questions, comments, concerns. A lot of times persons say you can't question anything, or you couldn't handle me in a debate. This is not a debate, by the way, right? Debate has rules and things, but so does this live session. Now, as a reminder, I am not in control of the chat because we have moderators. They actually run the live session. If you do or say something that's wild, they will deal with me and make sure that they probably have you, you probably won't be on here, but so long. That being said, though, if you would like to be respectful, we will try to be respectful to your culture, to your views, and respect your question, but we will answer it. We'll answer it in the manner that Yahweh has given us, that he sees fit for the answer, through Holy Spirit. And we're going to come through a very cultural prism and a cultural lens. We're not going to divert. We're not going to go to the left, to the right, right? Je suis français. No. Or well, you are. I'm sorry. You are French? Okay, well, merci. Ça va? Ça va bien? Hopefully. Participation. Merci. Merci. Participation. Something like that. Je m'appelle Pastor Kofi Ofori. Ça va? Merci. Hopefully I said something close in there, right? But welcome. And how you doing? Is that a sincere question? By the way, welcome. I don't know if that's a respectful question, but if it's a sincere question, how you doing, Sister Becky? If I didn't say so, we'll deal with that, because that could be a sincere question. It's just kind of wild the way you asked it. That being said, so we'll go ahead and get to Q&A. We ask the persons, once again, our moderators run the live session, and we honor them for what they do. They're going to look out for us and look out for me. There's certain things we shouldn't say, certain things if there's persons of different ages as well that they probably shouldn't see. So we're going to ask for you once again to be respectful. And if you are dealing with certain things or whatever, and you would like us to ask, or even if you comment, or even if you disagree, we give you, as much as we can, the platform to be able to do so. We're just going to have to do so in a righteous order. And how you doing, Jalen? Jalen, I think I might be off on this. Maybe I was finally able to reach back out to you. I'm not sure. I think I tried to reach out to you and befriend you. I think you have to accept my friend request, and then I can send you some information as far as the shout out stuff that we do. So I did reach out. I'm not sure if I was able to reach out to you. I was going through stuff yesterday, catching up. So I'm not sure if I got back to you. I believe I did, but I think you have to accept it, and then I can send you information. And if you'd like to go further as far as asking some questions or participation, other things that we do. So I just wanted to make sure. I think I did, or at least I think I sent a DM out. If you already got back to me, then I'll double check it. But your name popped up as soon as I saw it, so I want to make sure I deal with it now. But thank you as always for being on. All right. And how you doing, Reginald? Okay, so first question somebody brought up to me. It really was something based off of a teaching a while ago, and I happened to see it in the comment section in the SOC group. By the way, don't forget, we check things at Patreon, SOC group. I try to get the DMs as much as possible on TikTok. That's really difficult for me, but I try. Emails, we try to get to. We've been much better at getting back to everybody in their text messages, voice messages, things of that nature. So please make sure that you recognize, we have many different ways of you being able to reach out to us. And if you do ask a question, it might take me a little bit. Even YouTube, I try to go through the comments. I go through the comments regularly and everything, even on whether it be live videos, posted videos, shorts, whatever. We've been doing very well. So feel free to put your stuff there. And I promise you I will try my best to catch it. But this was actually a question that was based off of something we did in a live session a while ago. And I kind of answered it real quick, but we were at the end of the live. So I do not recall who it was. How you doing, Sister Helen? Shalom. But hopefully all is well. And we're thankful once again for Sister Raquel, who's been doing her thing, reaching out to you guys. Prayerfully, I'll be able to reach out to you soon and double check on some things. Um, and hopefully later in the year be able to see you at some point finally in person. We're praying for you and your son as always. Thank you everybody for being on. How you doing? User 6926792211268. Thank you everybody for being on. Okay, so the question that was brought up was a question about Psalms. I was talking and I was speaking and somebody was asking a question about the law. And so as often, many of us are kind of not aware of how the law works. How you doing, Sister Luana? And if Sister Jennifer, Jessica, Jennifer, Sister Jennifer's watching, please forgive me. I'm getting better. I told you it takes a while for me to get the names and stuff together. But how you doing? Patreon fam, all of y'all in the house. So when we were talking about, and how you doing, Victor? We were talking about the law, and I mentioned that basically the devil, when Christ mentions it is written, it is written, it is written. Christ comes from Deuteronomy every time. So he's quoting law. He's quoting what we even call the second law, which Deuteronomy means the second law, which really means the reiteration of the law. If you recall, the context is that we're in the wilderness. We're finally about to go into the land of Canaan. Our leader for these, for these amount of years, it wasn't 40 years, by the way, right? Or excuse me, 40 years being in the wilderness, right? But it was our leader during that time, excuse me, was not able to go into, let me get my mind together. Our leader at the time was not able to take us into the land of Canaan. That would be passed over to Joshua, right? So he's telling everybody before he's going to pass away, he's reminding them, reiterating the law. So he says, this is that, even before Deuteronomy 28, when it starts talking about the blessings and then the curses, right before that it says, thou shalt not, and let all of Israel say, amen. And thou shalt not do and let all Israel say, amen. And thou shalt not do that. And then the last verse, I think, right before that is Deuteronomy 20, verse 26, and he says, thou shalt, anybody who does not in any wise keep all these laws, right, shall be cursed. And let everybody say amen. And then he goes into, all those things or whatever, right? So that's the reiteration of the law. And when I was talking about it, I said, well, the devil also used law, right? Because he used scripture, he used law. And he said, for the second challenge of Christ, he said, well, it is written, throw yourself off of this temple, for it is written that, Yahweh would not allow anything to happen to you, right, unless you dash your foot against a stone. And then that's when Christ goes back. And so somebody heard me say, wait a minute, Psalm is law? And the answer is yes, Psalm is law, right? Yeah, Moses fell short, we couldn't enter, yeah, right? So, right, so we needed somebody else, Yehashivai or Joshua. This is Yehashivai Bad at Navan, or Joshua son of Nun, but he is the Joshua or Yeshua or Yehashivai that takes us into the land of Canaan. Then we have a second Yehashivai, who is the second Adam, who is the door, who is the way, who is the truth, who is the life, who takes us in, right? So all those things are going on. That being said, it's very important that we recognize that, yeah, even Psalm is considered to be law. Now, when we say law, a lot of persons miss this. They think that law is thou shalt not, or law is Mosaic law. But the law is, if we're in a kingdom, anything that a king decrees must, not maybe, should be. How you doing, Tay? Thanks, and thank y'all for the love. Anything that a king decrees in a kingdom must be established. Right, you catch that? Anything that a king decrees in a kingdom, it is a must. It must be established. Not it could be. Not it'd be nice if. No. Anything that's in a kingdom, it must be established. If the king says anything, right, it must be established. If the king says, write this down in the book, that is law because the king has demanded it. If the king says, chronicle this, chronicles are law. Right? Meaning that they are the king's law. It's the king's word. It's not just thou shalt not, right? That is not just thou shalt not. The law is anything that a king decrees. And so if we believe all scripture to be given by inspiration of Elohim, or some of your Bibles say it like this, that all scripture is breathed out of the nostrils of Elohim, right? If we believe that all Torah, all doctrine, all scrolls are in fact law, then we should make sure that we treat them as law, right? It makes sense, right? So that's why man should not live by bread alone, right? That's another law. Should not live by manna or bread alone, but by what? But by every word. The word is synonymous with the word law because it's the king's word. If it is the king's word, then it's the king's law. This is why Psalm 1 talks about what? Law, right? Barak is the man or the woman that does not walk in right, that's not in the counsel of those who are not righteous, or sit in the seat of the scornful, right, and all that stuff. But it says that but they say that Yahweh's law, right, is what? Is his law is what? Is their delight, right? Or I'm sorry, and they meditate on his law both day and night as well, right? So this is law. So we're speaking about law here. We have to recognize that when we're talking about everything that a king says, if we're talking about kingdom, we're talking about Radach. We're not talking about capitalism. We're not talking about just how the Constitution works. We learn the Constitution here and we talk about it because we want you to recognize some legalities and how law works ultimately, but we're talking about a law within a kingdom. A law within a kingdom is different than a law that's in the world, right? So everything that a king decrees must be established. And I need to get you some more stuff, Sister Lawana. I apologize. Now I'm thinking about somebody else I need to get stuff to, right? But a king, whatever a king decrees in our culture, is automatically law. So if the Bible says this is how you marry, it's law, right? If the Bible says, I give you a new commandment. Well, who gave us the new commandment? Yehoshua, right? He is the king, right? So it's law. If he says, I and my father are one, it's not up for debate, right? It's not up for debate. If he says, I and my father are one, then guess what we would call that? We would say that's law, right? So whenever we receive the word of Yah, or whenever we receive the Terach, the Torah, the doctrine, the instruction of Yah, all of it is law. So yes, so psalm, if it's a psalm, is a psalm that we believe is inspired by the Most High Yah, and is right, then it's law. Period. It's the same as things like this. If you have the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the United States, we're talking about corporative law. Of the Constitution of the United States of America, we're talking about, actual natural law, right? But if you have the Constitution of the United States of America, cool. Does that mean that we're dealing with some things as far as law? Can the president, right? So you have constitutional law. Can the president come and therefore write a decree? Right, we might call it something different, but he's writing a decree. If he writes a decree, then what would we consider that? We would consider that to be law, right? If he says that, right, if a state has law, is there's state law and federal law, but the state law is still law, right? So just because, so what happens is a lot of us catch the Mosaic law, whether you believe it's 613 laws, whether you believe it's 663 laws, we have this thing called Mosaic law, and we make the mistake of thinking that that is the only thing that our king has ever decreed as far as law. And how you doing, Wilby? And thanks for being on. Is it Curtis? Once again, I'm trying my best. The sun is in my eyes, so I'm gonna try my best to catch as many comments as I can, right? But yeah, so we have an issue, and it's Q&A session today, by the way, too. So we answering questions. We just ask that you be respectful. We'll try to be respectful back. So we make a mistake believing that law is only Mosaic law, forgetting that there were scrolls that precede Mosaic law. If you don't believe so, then you don't believe, well, some of you don't, but you wouldn't believe in Jubilee, right? But Jubilee tells us that not only did the language of all creation have to be restored, the alphabet, or what we call Hebrew today language, had to be restored to Abraham and by Abraham, it also came with the scrolls of his fathers. So if it came with the scrolls of his fathers, then this means that it comes with the scrolls of that Abraham's fathers, his sources, his abbas would have used, right? How you doing, Brother Bradley? So if it comes with those scrolls, if it comes with those things, then we have to look at those as also being law. The book of Enoch is law. Even in our Bible, right? The Bible tells you this is law. David, the king, says that anybody who's coming in, and it says it in, what is it? It says it, I forget now, what is it? Is it 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 18, and in in one of the Chronicles, see, I'm messing it up, but there's one, is in First Samuel, I believe, in one of the Chronicles, First Chronicles, Second Chronicles, one of those, where it says twice to go into the book of Jasher. That's law. So if you say that the book of Jasher shouldn't be included, but the law says that it should be included, you got a problem, right? Twice over, we're told. So we have to recognize and realize this, and look at this as far as with certainty, right? If it's in the word, if a king decrees it, it's law, right? For example, it's law that on the first that Barashat Bara Alacham Atzamayam Arat, in beginning Alacham created the heaven and earth. That's what we would call universal law. What does universe mean? Universe is a single spoken sentence. So everything starts with a single spoken sentence. That if you know Barashat, which is actually the name of Genesis, the first word of the Bible, and what the first scroll of the Bible is actually called, which translates as far as denotation to in beginning, and connotation it actually translates to the Son who comes out the right family, who's one with the Father, becomes our head, being destroyed by being led by a Holy Spirit to the cross, or to the top, to the mark. That's law, right? So that exists. So we believe that because we believe in the law. Whatever a king decrees, it must be established, right? That's how law works. How you doing, Matt Production? That's how law works. So we have to be careful with that, right? So when the person was asking about that, yes, Psalms, if they come from our King, if all Scripture be given by inspiration of Him, then it is law, right? It's not about how we feel about it, what we wanted to say. That's right. Remember, interpretation does not mean how you take it or what your interpretation is. That's not a lawful definition of interpretation. Interpretation means who wrote it, what was the language they used, what are they talking about, what is the situation going on, what is the context, what are the characters of the words that they're using to say, why is it that they say it in a specific order, is there something going on in time before or right after, are they about to go to war, right? Because wartime can be different. So for example, if you ever hear a scripture that mentions about horses, you have to know the context, right? Because horses in Israel were never just out there in the street like that. A lot of us think of like horses, and so we have this really either draconian mindset of it, or we have a Western sensibility about it. We have even a Western American sensibility, a so-called cowboy sensibility about it. So we hear horses and we're thinking, okay, yeah, well, everybody would have just been, they would have rode horses around. No, the horses were only out during times of war. So anytime that your scripture is talking about a horse, you got to know it's talking about war. So when we start going into Revelation chapter 6, starting at verse 1, and we start breaking down these four horsemen on Saturday, you got to recognize that we're talking about we're at war. Horses don't pop out unless you're talking about war. Yehoshua, when he comes back, our Messiah, when he comes back, right, and we look up and we see him in the cloud, right, he's going to be on a horse. What's that saying? We at war. It's a different mindset. You got to think of different context. You said ownership in Hebrew law has a sealed scroll. Dominion is an open scroll that can change. The Satan stole dominion, and how you doing, Sister D? Excuse me. But the Lamb brought that back, and is the Lamb that is worthy to open the seal. Yeah, Revelation chapter 5, right? And how you doing, Orlando? And anybody coming on any of these platforms, thank you again. So we have an issue. How you doing, Sister Carla? And thank you. Today we got an issue going on. Right, we have an issue going on when it comes to these things, and we're not really catching, what the Most High is saying because we don't have context. So yeah, when it comes to law, yes, if we say Mosaic law, that's like somebody saying, okay, there's the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, right? But there's other amendments, there's other law. Or that's like somebody saying I follow the Constitution. Cool. That doesn't mean that there's not a law that is under that law, or there's not a law that you would even say that goes with it. It's same as even if for those who study Quran, if you study the Quran, you have to actually know about other historical documents. The Quran was not all written at one time and all written in Arabic, right? And it's written, and Muhammad himself did not write the Quran, right? It was written after his death. So you actually, to see what statements are valid, there's other books that you should actually use to see if what you're saying is actually considered to be righteous in their culture, right? So you can't just pop up on something. You have to know context of things before you just start talking about different things or whatever. You can't say, I believe Muhammad said da-da-da, and then if you haven't read it and don't realize Muhammad didn't actually say that there. you know. Hey, how you doing, Sister Sheba? Thank you very much. I'm gonna try and get the letter out to you too. I know I owe some of you some letters as well. All right, so, but yeah, so we're talking about law, right? So the way we say that things are constitutional, we say we look at the Constitution and then the laws are framed by it. You could say, in a sense, that the Mosaic Law is constitutional, but there are other laws obviously framed by it. But really, it goes back further than that. Abraham, right, gave a tithe. It's law, right? Abraham, before we had it written in Leviticus, we have it written in Genesis. So that's how that works. Okay. So great question. Hopefully the person who asked it was on today. If not, and they ask it again, I'll refer them to this day. What's the day? I keep forgetting the day. January 27th. All right. Next up we have, who is it that we're looking at next? Next up we have, wow, there was only one other one that I could recall, and now I can't recall it. They didn't want their name to be mentioned. Oh, okay. They were saying, asking about when it comes to the fraternities and sororities. How do you talk to your family? How you doing, Sister Mignon? How do we talk to our families about fraternities, sororities, and things of that ilk? Right? Is it Ian Mark Network? Okay, I guess. Is that a, well, I don't know. I can't tell. Maybe it's about something I was talking about. Probably not. No, I guess you're saying I'm cosplaying as something that I'm not, which is very odd because even if you just talk about the Ghanaian part of me, this is obviously not cosplaying, but okay. You know, you're cosplaying as somebody who I guess is using intelligent argument, which I think you should use. I think you have the ability to use, but that's not intelligent. Ad hominem normally never is, because ad hominem can be used, but you should at least make sure you're attacking somebody based upon what they are. Right, right. It doesn't necessarily win you an argument, but it would be better if you knew who I was. That being said, though, much love to you, even in your disrespect. I'm not sure if it was. Maybe I missed the first part of it. But anyways, so when we're speaking on these things, yeah, we have to recognize and realize that there are a lot of things that we've been taught and that we've been told, and that persons have said this is what the word says and this is what this means, etc. And it's not. It's not even close. Right? We've been told a lot of different things. But yeah, so back to the fraternity. The fraternity, sorority, how do we deal with that? Somebody's talking about I'm in this fraternity and this and that or whatever. What are some ways we can talk to them? So, first things first, I would make it a point to, first of all, ask them what culture is your fraternity and what culture is your sorority. That's a big one with us all the time. If you're with us for the first time, I'm always going to be harping on, I am always going to harp upon culture, because we need to figure out what culture you're talking about. If we're going to leave something out there, I'm just going to say I'm a this, I'm a that. What culture are we dealing with when we're talking about fraternity sororities? That's the first thing I would go to. And how you doing? Just like that, Grand Rising to you. That's one of the first things I would ask. It's like, well, what culture? What culture is your sorority based upon? Most persons won't give you an answer. They might even say they don't know. A lot of persons will say, well, you know, I'm in a black sorority. Okay, what culture is your fraternity or your sorority based upon? And how you doing, Wayne? And a lot of persons will, once again, they'll just kind of be, what do you mean? What culture? It's important that we deal with the culture, because if you don't deal with the culture, you don't comprehend what's going on. So before I even go deep into some of the so-called Illuminati stuff and all that stuff, first things first, I don't care how black your sorority or fraternity is. Even if you go to a HBCU, it's not FBA culture. It's not so-called black culture. It's not so-called African culture. It is Greek culture. You know how we know? Because first things first, everything you wear and everything written about you is going to be written in Greek. Right? Right? Like first of all, we know that your stuff is in Greek. It's Greek culture because we see the Greek characters, or what today we might even call Greek letters, right? A more ancient form of the alphabet, and we see what you're wearing. Right? So if I see you wearing somebody's culture, I should recognize right from the beginning, oh, okay, that's who you are. And to try and change it and shift it, you're doing just as much appropriation as those who you say you can't stand. It's like when somebody says, I'm sorry, Oh yeah, culture. Yeah, yeah. So it's like when somebody comes to us and says, "Oh yeah, I celebrate Christmas because it's a Christian thing." Well, before, yeah, you're right, because pagans are the ones who started calling themselves Christians when they started mixing and matching things. But before you consider it to be about Christ, because Christ couldn't have been born on December 25th, it was about Sol Invictus. It was about Baldur. It was about what's her face, Frida. It was about mistletoe. If you don't know the story, right, you won't know that Baldur, son of light, gets hit during the right, with the mistletoe. Sun goes down. When the sun's down at its lowest point, they call it, that matches their winter solstice. Or you don't know about Saturnalia, a Greco-Roman holiday that has to do with Saturn. Saturn being, basically, or known as Dionysus, if you know about who Dionysus is. And basically, you're having a conversation about that. Roman Catholics, who mix and match anyways, iron mixed with clay, they come to a place to where we need persons to bow down to us. And what do? If you conquer other nations, you allow them, if you're trying to really have your kingdom last a long time, you start mixing and matching a whole bunch of stuff together, and just make sure, as long as it adds up to who they say they worship, you can worship lesser so-called gods or deists or deities, etc., etc. So if somebody's worshiping Christmas, we know what culture that is. If you don't know, then you might mistakenly believe that Christmas is about Christ, forgetting that Christ himself never celebrated Christmas, was not born during Christmas. Matter of fact, was born more than likely on the Day of Atonement, right? Like we know this. So it's actually a really odd place to be, to where I'm going to die on this hill that he could have been born on December 25th, but we know what existed before. But if you don't know the culture, or if you say, I don't do Passover, I do Easter. Easter is Ishtar. You're warned about Ishtar when you're warned about many of these kings, that actually we have evidence, archaeological evidence, that these kings existed. Not only they existed, but they worshiped these false um, heathen spirits. You're told in Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 1 through 5, going back to Christmas, you're told, do not go into the woods, do not chop down a tree, and do not drag it into your house, and do not pay somebody to cut it down, and do not stand it straight up and nail it so it stands straight up. Do not paint it silver and gold. You're warned specifically, because way before it was about Christ, it was about witchcraft. It was about pagan theology. It was about Scandinavians. It was about Greco-Roman thought process, and worship, and their deists and their deities who they worship. How you doing, Sister Casey? Thanks for being on. And how you doing? I'm sorry, I don't know how you pronounce it. OHR? Or I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but thank you for being on. And Ashe, I love to see the Ashe on there. And thank y'all for the love again. And thank you for like, share, subscriptions, hitting notification tabs, donations, all that great stuff that helps us do what we do around the world. How you doing, Brother Dwayne? So, and all these different things that we're speaking on, persons really are clueless. They don't really have a clue as far as what is actually going on culturally. So now back to to what the question was, right? And more, we're answering to be more specific towards the question, as far as what should I say to somebody who is into fraternities and sororities and things of that nature. You got to ask yourself, when you're going across the sands, the burning sands, do you know what that is? Thanks for being part of the community, Wayne. Appreciate you. Right? Have you looked that up? Why do you need to go across burning sands? Why do your hands go over your shoulders? Y'all think that that's Wakanda forever. Before Wakanda, people did this, right? The whole, I don't want to really do it towards anybody, but people did that. What does that mean? Right? The Black Panther character. Do you know that that's actual, based off of an actual female deity, or sorry for them, more like a Eureka, but a female spirit that was worshipped in Panther, that could change the Panther form. If you're talking about Osiris and Isis, and Heru or Horus, do you know that that has to do with necrophilia? Are you a necrophilia? You see what I'm saying? Like, we have all these things. When you talk about an obelisk, do you know that that's simply a penis? Is that something that you think is okay? We don't know that. You said it's what Egyptians do before death. Well, first of all, they wouldn't be Egyptians. Egyptians are persons that are Greek, right? We're talking about Kemet, who before it was Kemetic, it was Cushitic. And we should probably learn about the origins of that. That's why when a person talks to me about an Ankh, and they get all upset, I'm like, you don't even know what the Ankh means. The Ankh is a cursive version, really, of the Tav. And if you do some more research, you'll discover that literally Israelite, we know the rings of prophets and seals and stuff have an Ankh on them when the language began to get changed the first time. A lot of you using what you call ancient Hebrew, not realizing that that's not even ancient Hebrew. It's a change of the origin, right? It's not Paleo Hebrew, but you call it that because certain persons who now use modern Hebrew go back to that to try and say that that's where they come from. But before that, there was another version. There was another pronunciation of words. There were other words sometimes used entirely. So if somebody just says, "Oh yeah, they did it because Egyptian," no, right? By the way, not all Kemetic persons, not all dynasties, and not everybody who lived in Kemet believed in that. And even when persons say, "Well, everybody did it before they died," we have to be careful with that because there were pharaohs who were supposed to do those things because they believed that they were going to become netchers, and they believed they were netchers upon the earth. I'm sorry, hold on 1 second. Hi.
I just don't want you to get in trouble, but can I ask what you're doing?
Oh, sure. Usually I do it further up there, stuff. I've been coming here for years. From time to time, I live down the street, but I could basically come on. And sometimes, I besides just being here with my family, sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes I come out and I talk, and so I just speak about like different things as far as like Q&A. Like today, I'm doing Q&A session, person to ask me things about my culture and stuff.
Oh,
And so
cool.
sometimes I have a different background. I usually would be further up, but I was running late, and this
Uh-huh.
takes a little while for me to take this up there. But usually I kind of do it like over near the bamboo place or kind of
Uh-huh.
the mansion, right? So whatever it's called, or sometimes near the cult, what do you know, not culture center, whatever you guys think.
The nature center?
Nature center, right?
Yeah. Do you have a permit with the rental office?
What, to be able to speak to speak on camera?
Oh, it's just like that. It's just the whole setup. So you do need a permit to do that. So unfortunately, so like the purpose of the room is so people to come out and enjoy nature. And so when we have people set up like this, it kind of takes away space for people to do that.
Oh,
And we
okay.
also require a permit. It's not because you can't do it. It's also
That was the time in years that anybody, because even persons who work here in Science
yeah.
Pass and stuff that I've talked to for like 5, 6 years.
Uh
But
huh.
if that's something, I don't mind talking to the mayor's office or whatever, and I'll figure out
It's
whatever they
just
say
the
with that.
yeah. This is the office right here. This is only because like so we are trying to So my position only came into like within the last 2 years, so that's why. And then so like
No, it's always nice to meet you. I haven't seen you in the
yeah,
last 2 years,
it's
but
nice
that's
to
cool.
meet you.
Yeah.
My name is Saw.
But no problem.
Uh huh.
For time's sake or whatever, if that's what it's doing, if I'm taking up too much space or whatever, I'll talk to them
Uh huh.
eventually and see what's going on, and as far
Yeah.
as stuff like that or whatever, because different
Mhm.
places that I go in the city, like different places and stuff, and I ask usually,
Yeah.
even the persons who cut the grass and stuff
Uh
or
huh.
whatever, they usually know certain days or whatever, like, I
Uh
know
huh.
not to be in their way, and they kind of, we go out each other's way, but if
Yeah.
that's a problem for you, and not a
Yeah.
problem for
We
the
just
space or whatever, then I'll find out, and I'll look at whatever rules and regulations are there.
yeah. So we just want a permit only because like sometimes we have other people who make an appointment
No, no
to
problem.
hear, and so we just don't want it to like conflict.
No,
So we just want it on the
no
schedule so
problem.
we
Like,
know.
no
Uh
offense.
huh.
I'm just gonna go ahead and leave, and I'll make sure I talk to who I need to
Yeah.
talk to.
Yeah. So
And
there's Christina or
no, no, no,
Marissa.
no. You know what? I talked to Christina before in times past, but I'll go ahead and talk to who I need to talk to. And I mean, it's not a big deal. There's other places where
Yeah.
stuff
Sure.
can be done, and if I take up too much space
Of course.
for persons who are doing an event or something today, then by
Uh
all
huh.
means, let me make sure
Yeah.
that I'm not in their way. So
Oh yeah.
if
So
there's
if you
something going on
already
today,
have like a relationship with somebody
if
there,
there's
I
if
don't. I just don't want to overstep.
no,
Yeah.
no, you're not overstepping.
Yeah.
From what you say,
Uh
you're doing
huh.
what you're supposed to. I'll just
Yeah.
make sure that I check up for what I'm supposed to. Ultimately, like as everybody should. We go by the laws, rules, and regulations of the city, county, state, etc. I believe in just doing so. And so, yeah. So if it's too much space, or if I'm doing something, if it doesn't matter how many times I've been doing it. If it's been wrong the whole time, or something's changed recently, then I'll find out and I'll make sure I adhere to it.
Yeah. No worries.
So,
It's
but
fine.
I,
More
but
comfortable.
like I said, no, no.
Uh huh.
So I got to get out the way so that whoever's coming can be able to take the spot, like you were saying. But also too,
Uh huh.
I'm also
Well, it's
talking to
nice to
them. So
meet
sooner
you.
than later,
All right.
I'll make sure I get up there.
Okay. Well, it's
So,
nice to meet you.
mhm.
Have a good day.
Yeah. So we're gonna continue this, guys. So yeah. So as you guys know, I'm gonna go ahead and make sure, as you guys know, we've used the spot before for events and stuff like that. But apparently, somebody told me that we need a permit to be here. So we will make sure for right now that we, I guess, honor whatever the person's saying. So I'm gonna have to move over to the car. So I apologize. Apparently, this is something that I'm not allowed to do. I never knew that I was not allowed to do it. And I don't think that I'm not allowed to do it. They sent somebody else out to talk to me about it. That being said, I will talk to the city folk later and be like, hey, I didn't know that something we've been doing for years is now all of a sudden not allowed. But I'm not trying to trip over that. Just pray for us. That being said, I told y'all it's one of those days. So I will continue to answer the questions or whatever as soon as I can. But I guess I'm gonna have to try and I don't know if I'm gonna find another spot. That's gonna take too long. So I guess what I don't know. Can I? Y'all forgive me. Yeah, I told you it was one of those days. Let's continue. All praises to the Most High. We must be talking. Get ready to go into something really in depth. It comes with the territory. So apparently, for the first time ever in however many years we've been using this spot, I don't think they changed. Big brother, I don't think they changed anything. I think they, but it is what it is. So we're gonna check it out. We've been here. We come to the Arboretum over here in Baltimore. Been doing so for years and everything. But apparently we need a permit now. I think it's just because a black guy dressed in black garb or whatever is doing what they do. but we'll, who knows if we'll return because I don't feel like dealing with this stuff. But I'll make sure that I check out whatever needs to be checked out. But in the meantime, y'all just gonna have to hang in there for a second. I apologize. I think we'll just sit in the car. I could try to find another place. I'm trying to think what's close to here. Because I'm not that far away from other places that we could utilize. The only problem is that I know TikTok will probably try to shut us down because they'll say that I'm riding while doing a live session. And I know it's not the safest thing either, I guess. Even though I don't have to look at the screen to talk. So I don't know, but we might just go to the car. But anyways, give me a second. I wasn't expecting to have to change everything up last minute like this. And there's kind of some nonsense. She said I need a permit. She said I need a permit to be here, even though we've never had one. She said because somebody could be using the area. We want persons to be able to use all the area and stuff like that. So I don't know. There's been one person who's walked past me. Maybe he made a complaint. I don't think he did. But I think they saw me out here, and somebody doesn't like what I'm wearing probably and thinks that I'm doing something different. Or maybe they know because I've talked to them before. Maybe they don't like my belief system and stuff, and somebody finally had enough. But we shall move over. This might be the last time we come from this spot. It's a nice little spot. We've used many different places over here. We've even, tried to set up events in a nice little house. We walked through here before for many a shout out. Nice little area, but it is what it is. So this might be the last time for Silver and Arboretum over in Baltimore. It's been nice. This is a family spot too, so my family likes being over here as well. So we'll probably come over here from time to time to walk around, but it's all right. But anyways, y'all give me a second, please. I'm gonna move all this stuff over to the car, and then I gotta figure out if we're gonna just stay in the car or if we're gonna try to move somewhere else. If we do move somewhere else, I guess I might have to turn TikTok on and off, just to make sure that we can have y'all on, so I don't get in trouble. Or they might close down the live session and say that we gotta come back on in like 10 minutes. I don't know, but we'll try to figure out another spot. Everybody else, you guys should be fine, but just give me a second, please. Give me about 5 minutes. Hopefully. Give me a second, y'all. I'm gonna walk y'all over. About this. Interesting situation. Patient with me. I gotta grab one more set of things. Alrighty. Sorry about that. So give me a second. I think I'm gonna just go somewhere else, but I'll try to talk to you guys on the way. It should be fine for most of the platforms. The TikTok is the only one they don't like it. By the way, I'm not mad at it, because they don't want you not paying attention to the road. So it could be possible that TikTok might try to let you guys go for 10 minutes, but I'm gonna try my best to turn it on and off while I'm riding. I might let it pause for you guys a second or so here or there until we get to the other spot and reset again. But it is what it is. It comes with the territory. All praises to the Most High. I'm thankful and grateful for the opportunity to live, to breathe, to move, to have our being. And I guess whatever I got to do later, it's not the time or the place. Because I won't. The lady came out. She looked like she was ready to call the popo, and I ain't got time. They're like, go ahead, call them up. Let's go ahead. Let's go over the law, because I know that we literally been coming here for years. So not just as a family either. Like, we've been coming here. SOC has been here before. We've we've done live sessions plenty of times from here. Matter of fact, most of the time when you guys heard us, you guys be like, man, they're doing lawnmower stuff and all that. A lot of the time that lawnmower stuff was actually here. So that's why I was telling her, even the persons who do the lawn and stuff, which the guy's doing over there now. I could have just been like, yo, bro, come over here, vouch for me. And he doing his thing. He just living his life, working. It's whatever. So, anyways, if we so need to go ahead, I don't know if it's that big a deal. If this is the last time that we can do a live session here, it was definitely nice. It was nice doing it. Alrighty. But my apologies. I'm going to try to see if we can ride over to the other spot, keep the live session going at the same time. So, my apologies. I won't be able to necessarily see everybody. I'll try to start from where I left off. And if you're on TikTok, like I said, I'm probably gonna have to turn you guys on and off from time to time. Oh, wow. I got lemon water all in my beard. That's good. Anyways, so sorry, I'm trying to set it up where y'all can see me. So hopefully you can see me enough. Hopefully you can see me enough. Oh wow, I just spilled stuff all over myself. Alrighty, it's one of them days. Well, let me just get rid of this water now. I'm gonna drink it now before we start moving. All praises. All right. So my apologies. Sorry. Salakia, or Salakia. Sorry, family. Yeah, you see him up there? So, if I disappear, you said quit apologizing. Okay. You right. You right. Okay. So, we're going to go ahead and move over to a more familiar spot. So, TikTok, I'm going to purposefully turn it off for maybe a few seconds here or there and come back on and off. So, just letting you know that's to make sure I don't lose you, because they will quickly think that I'm looking at you at the screen the whole time. Doesn't matter if it's hands-free or not, to turn it off, which since a lot of young persons be getting accidents, they should. So just know that if it pauses or freezes, it's not necessarily the system. Sometimes we'll turn it off on purpose. But to get back to the question that we were dealing with, specifically with, so the for fraternities and sororities, you got to make sure that you're on with the fraternities and sororities, right? And we must recognize with the quickness that it is not of the culture that you think it is. I don't care what they're trying to push on us or tell you or lie to you about it. Say, oh no, it doesn't mean that. They're coming with a whack culture, a messed up version of culture, and they're trying to tell you, uh-oh. All right, now they're giving me warnings. They're saying, so just in case TikTok, you know what I'm gonna just do? Because usually they just shut it off. So they just gave me a warning that they're restricting the live session, which it is what it is. It's one of those days. They said that it's dangerous stuff being done. I'm assuming it's probably because they're saying that I'm riding at the same time. So just in case we do end up going off, we're on Facebook. We're on YouTube, but also too, I'm gonna just go ahead and go as long as it goes. If for some reason they turn it off, we'll go over to Kofi_42. Okay, Kofi_42 if we need to. So if it does shut off, I'm probably hopefully no more than about 10 minutes away from where I'm headed to set up again. I'm not gonna go to the main spot I normally do, but I'm gonna go to a place close to it. So I think I can make it there in about 10 minutes. So up there it is. There it is. All right. Oh, okay, so it did 10 minutes. It'll let us be on 9:50. All right, so let me just send a message out. I thought it was going to cut us off, but I get it. That one I actually don't have any problem with. All right. Yeah, distracted. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I have no problem with that. Yeah. So they yeah. I figured. All right, so we'll just come back on in about 10 minutes. Give me a second, y'all. I'm gonna make a video. See how much craziness is going on? Sorry, y'all. I gotta make a video, let them know. All right, hey, our live session just got cut off. It's actually not because of bad things. It's because I had moved to another area, so I'm behind the wheel, and they're doing what they're supposed to make sure that I'm safe. I will be back on this channel in about 10 minutes. All right, hey, our live session just got cut. Had to make a video initially to tell everybody why I was running late. Now I gotta make a video to tell everybody that we'll be on in 10 minutes. It is what it is. Anyways, I guess we'll keep on going where we are right now. Let's see. So basically, when you're dealing with fraternities and dealing with the sororities and stuff like that, you have to recognize and realize that it's of another culture. So these things that they're putting on you, or these things that they're saying are of your culture, or these things that they're saying are, not righteous and things of that. As far as your culture, you have to recognize and realize very quickly that that is not the case. You have to realize very quickly that you have been kind of duped on that. Now, as far as even with stuff, if you want to get into some of the things that are real as well, like the Masonic stuff, Masons and things of that nature, you are dealing with that as well. So if we are talking about Masonic structuring, that's part of the reason why you have obelisk and the burning sands as well in Greek. So it's not so much that it's FBA, Foundation of Black American. It's not so much that it is, um, whatever. It is that you're dealing with somebody else's culture. So Masons are persons who really started the whole fraternity thing and sorority thing in the first place. It's not an ancient um, it's not an ancient thing for us, or it's not something that came from our culture. It's not something that came from so-called black persons. It's not something that came from biblical stuff. That yeah, they might mention biblical verses, but Masons pull from everybody, right? Iron mixing with clay. So Masons are pulling from just about everybody, right? Masons are pulling from just about everybody to try and get what they want. And ultimately, part of what they do as well, just like in any sorority or fraternity, is you're blinded to what stuff is, and then the further up you go, the more you're allowed to see. So we have to talk about that and be honest about that. There are a lot of things that they are trying to tell you and I are okay to do, and they're what the Bible says. And hey, we help out churches or we help out neighborhoods, but the corporations that persons hate so much, they do the same thing as well, right? So that in and of itself can't be the end all be all, can't be the thing that just tells us, oh, okay, it's cool to support fraternities and sororities. There's a lot of spiritual activity that's messed up. And you don't have to just listen to me on that, by the way, right? We can talk to persons who are former Masons. You can talk to persons who are formerly in fraternities and sororities and listen to their experiences and why many of them have left because of religious belief, biblical background, even not just biblical background, coming to the knowledge of truth. Not even always talking about the Hebrew Israelite way. I'm talking about even so-called Christianity, realizing that you can't worship false spirits, and they're worshiping false spirits, and they're doing ceremonies that are against the word and against the Bible. If that's the case, then we have to have an honest dialogue about that. So that's something that I tell those in my family. If that's the question went, that's something that I would tell those who are in my family, to make sure that they're aware of, to make sure that they recognize that you can't do some of these things, that you can't operate in that fashion and say that you are in the will of Yahweh at the same time. Now here's another part of it. If we want to get into some of the the social things, even socioeconomic type stuff, here's another part of it that we don't talk about enough, is that these groups are usually formed to help the boule. Right? Now, if you don't know about the boule or bourgeoisie, you're talking about specific, especially in our community, you're talking about specific black persons who are given, who are supposed to help, and were specifically put together from times of chattel slavery. That's, for example, when you look at the persons who are light-skinned and don't want to be referred to as black, or even passing for black in places like Louisiana or South Carolina, from the same thing that was purposefully done from times of slavery, to have persons fight against each other. And the less so-called black that you seen, the greater you were. And so over time, that went from that to, okay, we'll have different organizations for them, or we'll give them certain titles, or we'll let them be in certain positions of power in politics, or whatever the case might be. So over time, that has changed to where now the bourgeoisie can look different, including a lot of persons don't know, like the bourgeoisie, we don't think about these persons as being bougie, because we think bougie just means you're trying to be white. But the bourgeoisie in that class has not only been challenged, but has been changed recently. Now recently, we have where these persons have now become the persons who are put into the lot, so you're entertainers. So, for example, I used to, and I still like some of the stuff that he says, but I talked about before how I used to really look up to Harry Belafonte for some of the things that he was willing to talk about concerning, Obama and what he didn't really do for our people and things of that ilk, right? I was very appreciative of him actually giving facts, speaking facts, telling the truth. Part of the reality, though, is that he doesn't talk about it. He wouldn't be honest about it. Is that, hey, you were in a relationship with a black woman, with what's the singer's name? And the performer's name, Eartha Kitt. And you would only sleep with Eartha Kitt like about once a year. Maybe y'all would go in. They go in for I don't know however many days. They would meet up once a year in D.C. And she would always talk to him about having a relationship, and he would always tell her, "I'm not gonna have no relationship with no black woman. Y'all in trouble." Right? He's bullshit. He's bourgeoisie. We're not supposed to know those words. So he's sitting there talking about blackity black, 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 but he hates his own woman, right? And we don't recognize that that's how bouginess works. That's how bourgeoisie works. That's how these sororities and fraternities work, where they're supposed to work against you and not really help you out, right? So this is part of that class. So even when we're talking about fraternities and sororities, they might not know that they're getting into something like that, or they don't even think about themselves being Masonic. You know, if you get into once again the characters, the lettering, and all this stuff, or whatever, you know, that's what you're talking about. That's what you're dealing with, right? So if we're speaking on these things and dealing with these things, we have to be honest. We got to be accurate. We got to tell the truth. You know, we must recognize what's going on. You know, and we don't like to have that conversation or be honest about like, hey, yo, that's part of the stuff that's going on. And we're going to talk about spirituality and things. We talk about what's being lifted up or not being lifted up, or what's being taken away, etc. We got to have honest dialogue. Like y'all are really in the midst of this thing, thinking you're doing something different, and not realizing that you're actually doing exactly the same as what everybody else is. So, you know, you gotta be honest, you gotta be forthright. There's nothing wrong with being honest about that. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, you know, we gotta have an honest discussion about this. There's nothing wrong with saying like this is way too much. This is jacked up. So, and persons don't realize that. So a lot. This is how you can. It's kind of like the same thing we talk about, where you'll say that there's a church on every corner, and next to every church, especially in the black neighborhood, next to every church is going to be a liquor store. Right? That's something that's normal. And you know, you would think that the church or those who believe in the Bible would work against it. But the same way, you got all these persons talking about how black persons, whether it be PWIs or HBCUs, how we don't get anything done. And yet, in these PWIs and HBCUs, we're not going to talk about a true thing that goes on, which is, hey, like, how do we have all these different fraternities, sororities, etc., and yet we still have the same issues that we have? How do we have all these sororities, but, you know, women still aren't taken care of? How do we still have all these fraternities and men are still talking about that they feel like it's more misandry than there is misogyny? Right? These fraternities and sororities are not created to be a safe place. They're created to make sure that basically you're giving into the same system that's taken away from your people. And even though we don't like to have that part of the argument, it's real. It's true. So, you know, we gotta be real and honest about that, and be willing to have honest dialogue and not skirt around the issue and not run away from it. Like if it's, you know, if those things are in fact happening, then maybe we should admit that they're happening, and if they're happening, we should try to do something to combat it. Right? And there's a little bit more I'll say about the HBCU, but we're here at the spot. I'm gonna try and start the live session again. They said that we should be able to go on live now, so just give me a second. I'm gonna set up again, and then we shall finish up again. Same persons can't because there were too many. Or what if a group needed to come? Right. So, like, well, there's no group there. I don't know, but what if a group needed to come? This happens. Like 50. we can almost sit up again. All right. Okay. All right, so my bad, my apologies. Again, prayerfully everybody be able to see us this time. And then shut off the last live. Go get my water. Okay. So, prayerfully everybody can see and hear us all right. Once again, my apologies. Hopefully, all is well. It is what it is. The Most High still gets all praises. Ain't nobody said nothing. Alrighty. Today the 22nd. Okay. All right. So once again, thank you for your patience. Had to get set up again, but hopefully all is well. Everybody can see and hear. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm still doing a little bit more setting up. Make sure everything's together. Nothing's falling over. Everybody can see me from all the different angles. Okay. Let's see. Well, prayerfully you can. Not sure. Let me see. I think everybody should be able to see me and see the setup. So we had finished. Oh yeah. So I was saying, talking about that. One last thing I wanted to make sure that we talked about real quick. Oh, by the way, everybody can see and hear me okay? Yes, no, maybe so? Had to change areas. So, it is what it is. Okay, cool. So, getting set up again. I don't have to really go through a long setup this time, but I do need to set up a little bit. Just to make sure that everybody's charged and that we don't end up losing any of you guys because of lack of charge. Praise y'all. It doesn't take that long to set up. We got a nice little setup here. It don't take too long. We can take it everywhere and travel. That's one of the things that I'm thankful for and grateful for, and a lot of the traveling and stuff like that we've done is we've learned how to be able to put I set up together pretty quick, fast in a hurry if necessary. So when stuff like that happens, it doesn't take us too long to get set back up. How you doing, Brother Jacob? All right. Okay. So, and I apologize for the misdirection. I was thinking we were going to have to go over to _42 on TikTok, but they only shut it down for 10 minutes. And by the way, TikTok part is not even problematic because they try to make sure persons don't that we are not behind the wheel for long periods of time trying to look down at you guys, or really for any period of time, and trying to talk to you guys at the same time. So I actually have no issue with TikTok not allowing that at all. That's actually seeing a lot of these young persons, especially who've been losing their lives because they be trying to do all these challenges and jump out of vehicles and do all that. That's actually a great rule, and I'm glad that they actually adhere to it. So I actually have no problem with them doing that. But anyways, I'm sorry. Just trying to make sure everybody's plugged back in, and then I'll keep on going from in the car. We were talking about that HBCU piece. I wanted to add one more part on just for that. Talking about these fraternities and sororities and what culture things are, and we assume that it's this culture, that culture. Just wanted to finish that statement up, and then we can keep it pushing to the next question, which I believe is over here, talking about the book of Thomas and the book of John, the other book of John. So we'll get into that next. And then I apologize if there's other questions. I might have just forgotten them. Not trying to be rude or mean. So it is what it is. How you doing, Sister Shirley? And thank y'all for the love. How you doing, my brother Yachasab? Okay. It's a rough start for the day today, but we still in here. Yahweh is always faithful. He's always tabah. He's always great. And to him be all glory, majesty, dominion, and power, both now and forever. Just like the angel said in Revelation chapter 4 and Revelation chapter 5. Hallelujah. All right. Okay. All right, so where are we at? Oh, yeah. So the HBCU piece. Excuse me. This lemon water always gets stuck up in my beard and in my mustache. So the HBCU piece. You said, is Christ Jesus God? I don't worship Jesus because that's not his name. And I don't worship God because that is not his title. But is our Messiah, Yahashua, the same part of Elohim, that is, is his Abba, is his father, Yahweh, and are he and his father one? Yes. So the idea of what's called nowadays the Trinity, yes, it goes deeper in the actual original language and stuff. So we prefer to actually use it in its deepest and original context. But yeah, if you're on a surface level and you still only know such terms as Jesus or half man, half Zeus, and you still worship half man, half Zeus, and you call him Jesus, if that's where you are, then the Son is yes, in fact, the Most High, the manifestation of him upon the earth, and he is one with his Father, and he is part of Elohim, which means Alav, Laman, Che, Yavad Man, literally meaning that the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit lead us in the water, blood, and spirit. That's his title. So we can't separate it from who he is. Right? But like I was saying before, how you doing, Brother Richard? Yeah, how you doing, brother man? To get back on track, though, to where we were. So even stuff about the fraternity sororities, when we talk about culture, when we talk about HBCUs, right? When we speak on the HBCU, we have to recognize that a lot of what we consider to be the HBCU, or to talk about as far as the HBCU, is a lot of that is messed up or lost, because a lot of us even think that just because it's an HBCU, it is so-called black culture, right? That's a very big, important thing that we should talk about a lot more often, is that so-called black culture is not actually something that we see at all, right? So-called black culture is actually not something that we're seeing really at all. And when somebody says, what do you mean by HBCUs were not started by so-called black persons? I'm sorry, now we get over here and now it's windy. Prayerfully you guys can hear me and see me all right. I know it was supposed to be windy. It wasn't supposed to start too windy. It seemed like we had a great pocket over where we were, and now we went from there to where it's windy. Right, but hopefully you can hear me. My apologies. I didn't realize it was going to be like this today, one of the days. But um, but yeah. So when we talk about even what we consider to be black culture, HBCUs were not started by so-called black persons. And we got to be honest about that, right? Like, persons want us to have these weird, interesting conversations about this stuff, but in all honesty, HBCUs were not started by black persons. So if the HBCU, thank you, Sister Madame. So if the okay. Well, so if the HBCU was not started by a so-called black person, and that's what we're putting our pride in, is how it's making sure that it takes care of the colored person, just like the NAACP wasn't started by colored persons, right? It might have CP in the title, but it's not started by colored persons. So if I'm talking about that stuff, once again, I'm talking about boule, or something that was put specifically to cause us to have issues within our own community. Persons are put in charge of it, and they're not even really in charge of it. They're working for somebody else. If you don't know what I mean, you will not find that there was I'm not talking about a chapter, by the way. I'm talking about over the NAACP period. You will not find a black president of the NAACP as a whole until like what, 3 years ago? If it's taking that long, you got to ask yourself, how is it that through all these different things going on, we never had a so-called black person or a colored person over the NAACP? Once again, don't talk about what. No. My chapter. I know about chapters. I'm talking about the whole thing. Why was it that you had not the Rothschilds, but the not the Morgans? Who did you have over there? Which one of those families you had in charge of them? Right? Why is it we don't talk about that? That it was those persons who have done a lot to make sure that they have not taken care of us or our people, but we keep giving them. We keep letting it slide like it's nothing. Right? Like these persons have specifically been against our people and have been there. So the same thing, once again, it's a boule type thing. It's a bourgeoisie thing. And we don't even like to think of persons nowadays as being bougie. We think of them as being ghetto or hood. No. Like these persons are bougie, right? Remember, the bourgeoisie. Their first things first. The bourgeoisie is supposed to tell you and I why we're supposed to be somewhere else and be something different, right? So the bourgeoisie are supposed to tell you and I why it's not acceptable to take care of your own, and they don't take care of your own, and they end up doing stuff for others. So, for example, all these rappers that we're so big on, none of them have made sure that our people are eating yet, right? Like whoever you want to bring up, Kanye when you thought he was conscious, Jay-Z, Common, um, list whoever you want, right? Biggie wasn't around long enough, maybe, I guess. Pac gave more than what we think he did, but he wasn't necessarily going to do all the way out either. But he had that in him. He had more of that in him, I guess. You know. But look at whoever it is, Bombada, who was actually messing with little children. Uh, LL Cool J. As they've gotten older, as they've even started to now tell you guys after telling you y'all ain't this, y'all ain't that, you ain't got no money, blah blah. You know, don't worry about this. Now they talking about 401ks and Roth IRAs and all this stuff now, but none of them were. You said Nipsey would have been that person. More than likely, would he have been all the way there? No, but he definitely was doing way more. Matter of fact, he's the only one that we can say that, not even having anywhere close to what a lot of these persons I just mentioned had, he was making sure that he was, you know, building stores and things of that nature. He was genuinely trying to teach persons. Ultimately, would he have gone all the way there? I mean, we never know, so I don't want to speak of what ifs, But he definitely did a whole lot for us and for our community, right? So can't deny that, but I'm just saying, right? Who are the persons that we have, especially now, but even at times, like, if we want to say they were off or whatever, fine. The ones that were going to give that were off, etc. Some of you want to talk about XXXTentacion. I don't think that's a great one. I think that he had some great ideas that were stolen from him and everything. And maybe there's the alleged thing as far as the Drake connection and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it still where we are now, right? Where's food? Where's shelter? Where's nationality? Where's language being taught, right? Forget schools. Where is it to where we can school ourselves? And it's not just them. It's not just them, right? Well, I mean, there also too. Who's my and how you doing, brother Kenyatta? Who's man's who's my man? I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Uh, the original, what we now call Afro beats, the original Afro beats, not any of this new stuff, like the original one, who was basically jazz fusion, but with the Afrocentric sound, and died broke. I can't remember my name. I can't remember my man's name right now. Thank you. And I don't always say his name right. Fela. I've heard Vela, Vula, but I think it's Fela. Right? Is the proper one. Not sure to be honest, but yeah, but we don't have a lot of that stuff. So when we go back to stuff like the HBCU, our mindset is, oh yeah, HBCU is basically like a FUBU type thing for us by us type thing, right? And right, which even the owner of that would sell it to somebody else, right? But really, what happens is actually the HBCU was started by, it's not the Rothschilds, it's Rockefellers. Especially most of your medical places, they were Rockefeller places. Nowadays, it's not quite the case. It's starting to kind of, become everybody. But a lot of your schools back then, especially HBCUs, they started by other families that not about you and are basically teaching you the same curriculum. And if you look at the curriculums of these schools and how all of them now, it used to be you didn't want to be um, what was it? You didn't want to be accredited to be a better school. Now everybody wants to be accredited because they give you more money and stuff for some of this stuff. So they want to double dip. They want to get the stuff that's kind of from them being private and from being accredited. So they're accredited now in many ways. But there used to be you didn't want to be accredited. So the non-accredited schools are the best ones. But if your accreditation comes from the same person that doesn't like you, then how can we say that it's for you? And how you doing, guys, man? Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing? Is it King Jones, right? So so well, he did have that line about Israel and about Judah and stuff like that in this song where he was repeating it over and over again. But if you look at some of his spiritual beliefs, he wasn't quite there. But I was proud of him for saying that, right? But we're all growing too. But once again, my overall point is that a lot these persons are not making it because they're for you, right? Jay Z's not making it because he takes care of his people. HBCUs are not making it because they take care of their people. I need you to recognize that. That's not how that works. Thank you. Laura Spelman was a Rockefeller. Yeah, Spelman University. If you look it up, you'll see a lot of these Rockefellers popping up in HBCUs. Even look at places where we know they're not HBCUs and they're PWIs, but we think of them as being black colleges, which most of us never been to some of these. So, but if you go to, we used, I know growing up, a lot of us swore because we saw Allen Iverson and Patrick Ewing. Once again, they're showing the stars and stuff like that. And I'm not even speaking ill of them. I'm just saying Allen Iverson, Patrick Ewing, Sleepy Floyd, all these different cats that were coming out of Georgetown, right? Denzel, Dikembe Mutombo, all these cats coming out of different places. We thought, oh, okay, all these cats is, you know, this must be a school. John Thompson, he's strong black man. It must be blacker than black over there. No, it's not at all. Not right now. Never. Matter of fact, if you look at where they come from, Georgetown University's whole history is based upon nuns who had family members who had slaves. They asked for the family members to give slaves to them because the slaves should be used for God's will to build them up, and then they used the slaves over time to start, promoting slave trade and stuff like that. And they were able to use money to start a school. Right? So when we had these conversations about some of this stuff, we're having bad conversations, a bad thought process during these conversations, because in our mind and our hearts, for some reason, we automatically believe that because there's a black face on something, it means it's black. But don't forget that blackface is one of the biggest ways to entertain anybody, been for years. So, yeah. So when it comes to fraternities, sororities, all the stuff we were talking about earlier, it's really, and I would start there. Just like, hey, are you aware of the culture that comes with the fraternity or the sorority? And it's one of those things where somebody might say, that's not what I intend. And that's not what, it's the same thing like the Christmas argument. That's not what I intend by it. That's not what I want. No. It might not be what you intend, right? It's like the ACAB thing. All cops are bad, right? That's not what you intend, sir. But if you're part of a wicked system, you're part of a wicked system. It's not because I hate you, bro. It's not because I don't think that you might mean well. I need you to recognize this is systemic. It's systematic. What does that mean? If it's systemic, it means that it works whether you want it to work or not. If it's systematic, what does that mean? That means that it continued. The system was put in place on purpose, right? just because I wanted to do well in the military and I wanted to do things righteous for my people in the military doesn't mean that the military was not used to make sure that it helped to ensure racism, white supremacy exists. I'm gonna say it again. Somebody might be upset. That's okay, right? Just because I meant well in the military doesn't mean that I wasn't part of a system at the time, right? That makes sure that they use racism, white supremacy to make sure that the existence of the system called the United States Corporation and other things are still in existence. It's not because I didn't mean well. It's not because I might have known that. I didn't know that, especially not to the degree I know it at age 17. To be honest, I was just looking for a job. I needed something to not be on the street. Dad wasn't gonna let me stay at the house. I had to make sure I did what I was supposed to do and got a job or went to college and all that stuff. I had to do what I had to do. So even in that, and I even tricked myself into being like, okay, I'm gonna just go hold home and I'm pro George Bush, George H.W. I'm sorry, George W. Bush, and all that. But still, but at the end of the day, I still was part of it. And when I learned about it, should I keep doing it or should I change? Same as with the fraternity and sorority. Right? If we find out that it's wrong and we know the ties that are to it, should we keep lifting it up or should we say, okay, it's enough? We gotta untie ourselves, untether ourselves to this thing. Y'all remember that old game, tetherball? This is the way that they do us. Y'all remember that old Holy Spirit have you with me? Right? Right? Had to get out the house. Barracks was free. Come on, that's where I started too. Right? After boot camp, of course, but the barracks is free. And then after that, you can go ahead and you get an allowance to live somewhere. Okay, cool. That's kind of free money too. Especially if you like me and you got a family, like you start getting a family while you in the barracks. Wait a minute, okay, I gotta figure this out. And then you go ahead and you go somewhere else where you can get more money for hazardous duty pay and all that. Okay, right? It seems like it's worth it, but you get away from it and you realize, or even if you in it long enough, especially if I be honest, as a so-called black man, you in it long enough, you see some things, you'll realize some things. You'll be like, yeah, this ain't. There used to be persons that would come on these. On social media and argue me down and swear that they were my friend. They were racist white supremacists, but they want to always be like, we're on the same side and we look at it the same. And they say, yeah, I was in the military just like you, and in the military we don't see any color but green. I was like, man, when I was wearing green, I had to make sure I was guarding our women against you, and I had to make sure that I was guarding myself against you. When I was wearing blue, I had to make sure I did it too. Right? It didn't matter what color. Y'all say all this stuff now. I remember being in. I remember y'all looking at us and keeping us from promotions and stuff, and us being like, wow. And I'm talking about the 2000s. So don't hit me with that a long time ago. I'm talking about 2000s. I was until 2006, and up until I got out, I remember seeing black men in any position of power being like, yo, he had to go do some stuff to get that. So we're not gonna pretend now that it's different, right? We're not gonna pretend now that it's different. Right, like I was in, and I was in not that long ago. That's right. It's not for us, right? I'm not saying that they're not a black force. Somebody saying, and this is when we get somebody to say something. What about the black four-star generals? And do you know what they have to do and what they have to get away from, and how they can't really support their own to a certain degree to be able to get promotion too? You can't be yourself. You can't be of your culture. Man. You got to code switch to the next degree, not just code switch. You got a life switch. You got to literally put a switch to yourself. It's like, but once again, like that tetherball thing I was talking about, it's basically like a tetherball. If y'all remember the game tetherball back in the day, hey, you had tetherball and you took the ball, and somebody hit it on one side, somebody was hitting on the other. You were trying to figure out who was going to win. But either way, no matter what, the ball was going to remain tethered, and at the end of the day, the ball was going to be tethered to a pole, and you weren't going to do anything but wrap around the pole. That's all you could do. If they let go a little bit, it was only so that they could spike you around. And that's the same thing with a lot of stuff that's going on. You can call it HBCU, you can call it PWI. At the end of the day, they're here to spike you around. You can call it this fraternity, that fraternity, the Burning Sands, or I don't know enough about that part of it, to be honest. I know there's different things you have to go through, whatever. Some of it hazing, some of it not so much, whatever. But at the end of the day, you go through all that stuff, you're tied to the same system. There you go. Yeah. So you went. There you go. So you went through as a pilot. And this is a pilot talking. Right? Went through flight school and was told, no, your A is B. If you didn't catch that comment, yeah, that's what's in there. And you need to know that. That ain't changed from the times of Tuskegee. You think that changed? You think everything just magically changed? You think the same persons that were experimenting on our sisters just stopped experimenting? You think the same persons that said that, you can look this stuff up in books now. The same persons that said that they're teaching this stuff in class. The same thing, books that say, sisters don't feel pain the way that others do. You think that just stopped? Okay. So anyway, I'm gonna leave it alone, but it is what it is, right? It is what it is. Okay. All right. So next question that was up, and thank you for being patient as we had to literally change up everything, change locations, take the live down, or I guess had the live taken down, but it was because we were moving in the car, so I have no problem with that. But we had to deal with all that drama and stuff, and it took me so long just to get started today. But thank you once again for being on. Let's let's get into the next question, which I believe was somebody asking about the lost gospel of John, if you will, and the lost gospel or the lost book of Thomas. So we're gonna look at John first. And admittedly, I'm not as hip to John because I can never really not now. This is not to be confused with the actual Yehochanan or John that's in the Bible, or First John, Second John, Third John, or Revelation, which are all written by the same person. But supposedly, the same person wrote another so-called hidden or lost gospel, or if you will, right? Which we know that term gospel doesn't even exist, gospel, but also whenever you see gospel in your Bible, you need to know that originally it meant what we use to evangelize, right? And what we use to evangelize is Tanakh, or the law, or the doctrine, the scrolls. So that actually is what that word would have meant. But let's look up this lost book of John. Now, I know a little bit about it, to be honest. I have not gone as deep into that one as the lost book of Thomas. But we'll go into the lost book of John. Oh my goodness. Sorry, it's windy. All the devices are trying to pull me. Ay. One of those days. So I'm trying to get there. I can't even look at it. So this is actually known as a secret book of John. And if you look at it, it's actually considered to be like Gnostic. Now, once again, I have to always say this. This whole term Gnostic, not agnostic. Agnostic is what we use nowadays to talk about those who don't know what they believe, whether they believe the Most High might be real, they might not be real, but they think, hey, it doesn't really matter. And some of them think. I used to be one of them, so I used to think that it doesn't matter what you do as long as you're a great person, yada, 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 right? But this so-called book of John is not written by agnostics. This is by a group that are supposedly called Gnostics. Now, this word Gnostics should be Gnostics. And if you don't know Gnostic, by the way, Gnostic, the reason why you should know that is because it's part of it actually has a word that's part of it that you might not recognize the etymology. That word etymology is actually Ganau, or to canal, which we would call to know. That's what we would say, to know something. To canal or ganal just means we're talking about either Gullic or more Germanic, or a certain type of Germanic Gullic. But canal or ganal, and some even a little bit of Latin used to have that word in it that was adopted as well. It means to be intimate with something to the point of identifying it. So this word Gnostic or Gnostic is something that even in the time didn't really exist. There wasn't a term for that, but the word canal or the canal was more Germanic, and it means to know, right? K-N-O-W, and it also means to know something to the point of identifying. Problem with this term being used for a lot of persons who believe back then is that this term didn't exist. So when we're speaking on Gnostics, right? For example, persons talk about being under the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, and I forget what they call it at the moment, but they'll say that they're under the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, and so that's what they believe in. Marcus Aurelius was somebody who committed genocide and did all types of stuff, but he had a journal, and the journal makes him look pretty great as far as how he thinks things through. But if you look at what he's doing in real life at the same time, he's actually doing a whole bunch of different things, right? So that belief was around 500 years and before, and he didn't call. Okay, it's called Stoicism, right? And so, are you a Stoic? He didn't call himself a Stoic, but others would later say, "Oh, he's Stoic." It will say Stoicism. Well, if that's what it was called before it was that, he was following something that was 500 years prior to him at least. So the same thing with Ganal or Gnostic, if you will. The term Gnostic was not something that they used, and many persons were trying to say that these Gnostics believe this, that, whatever. They just lump a whole bunch of different beliefs into one thing. right? So agnostic, or really agnostic, right? Agnostic, right? Right? Agnostic, right? I don't know, basically, in a sense. If we just break down to the bare bones of the word usage, agnostic, I don't know, right? But Gnostic, I know. And so these persons who say they know now say that the Gnostics, and once you knew what they knew, this is what they believe. And they just throw a bunch of stuff in, kind of like Christianity, where, hey, we take the Bible, but then we throw a whole bunch of belief stuff in there. And so we say that we're the chosen, and you can be the chosen too, because yeah, we'll accept that, and we'll accept that, and we'll accept that, and as long as you sprinkle some Jesus on it, everything should be fine, right? So if you go there, when you said a farmer, I can see that word usage as well. It's not necessarily the same. Actually, it's kind of the same language thing going on there. It's more of a different side than the Germanic side, right? It's different on the other side than the Gullic side, but yeah, I can see that, right? I'd have to look more into that, but I think I know what you're talking about. But ultimately, getting into this book of John, or this secret book of John, this lost book of John, we always say this when you talk about these things. First of all, we have to recognize, number one, does this thing have a certain signature? Does it say the same thing that's biblical? Like, for example, we look at the book of Jasher. We're told to read the book of Jasher, and when you read the book of Jasher, it says the same that the Bible does, and then yes, it does give some things that maybe the Bible's missing. But when David says, "Is this not written in the book of Jasher?" right? Then you should know, you should be able to look and see is what he's talking about in there. Oh, it's in there, right? That's why he's saying to use it, right? But it has the Torah and these other books, right? If they become Torah themselves, Tanakh, a guide, doctrine, law themselves, then they should match the same thing. So in this so-called book, Lost Book of John, we have a couple issues because we don't have signatures of John, meaning that he doesn't speak the same way he spoke in every other letter or in any other thing he's written. It's right. It's not necessarily focused on making sure you have a relationship with Christ the same way that he says every other book is supposed to be about, right? But also we have a problem with it because it's supposed to be from second century gnosis or gnosis, or those who know, or gno, right? Those who are intimate with something to the point of identifying. But this is something that came up later. All right. Now the problem even with it is that when it comes to creation, it says that creation, you come from lesser material. That's a big thing in the so-called lost book of John, is that you are not necessarily made from that. Matter of fact, it's if you do some research, there's something called the uh, Neo Neo Hamad Library, the new or Neo Hamadi, Neo Hamad, Hamadi, right? And so you'll figure out when you go there, when you look that up, you said, why do preachers not preach about Lady Wisdom? I don't know. We have to ask them. We preach about wisdom being a she, even though it's not a physical woman, but it's a spirit, a feminine spirit, just like Holy Spirit is actually a feminine spirit. If you know how to speak Hebrew, you know what the characters mean, and you know what's masculine and feminine. So, but even when it talks about Abba Father, that's not a male, that's a masculine spirit. Elacham is to be the masculine spirit, feminine spirit, and then you have a male, it's actually male on earth, right? But just because it's a spirit, like the spirit of Jezebel is a male or a female, it doesn't mean that it's not a feminine spirit. It doesn't mean you can't have either. It's a different context. But you have to ask them, right? That being said, when you go into the Nag Hammadi, which is a library of Egypt, of Kemet, you'll see that it's kind of copied off of that, right? So a lot of stuff that's supposed to be in the Book of John, we know that before that there was something that was there, and we know that it's been proven that these things were actually copied, like they used the same word use. Now somebody might say, "Oh, that's you trying to hold on to the Bible and not realize the Bible's copied off," but it's not. It's never was considered. Matter of fact, we don't speak. Like, here's another thing that happens quite often. We forget in the New Testament or the Old Testament. If you're one of those persons who use that, they Christ quotes what you call the Apocrypha, right? Solidifying the Apocrypha. David, or I'm sorry, we just talked about how, yes, King David quoted and told you to read the book of Jasher, right? So we see that Jasher is in there. Paul not only quotes Old Testament stuff, but he quotes things that would come out of books that are outside of your 66 books as well. Um, And we know that to be true. We know that we can accurately see that that was there. One came before the other. Paul is quoting, no problem with it, right? Um, we even have persons who quote each other or verify each other's work. So you'll see stuff that like is preached by John to Ephesus and Revelation about love, and you see that Paul is preaching and teaching about the same thing in the epistle or the letter written to those of Ephesus. Right? We can see certain things that repeat themselves or certain things that verify, right? We can even see historical documentation that we talked about recently last week or Monday evening when we did the whole thing showing you guys about you can look up on the stele of the Assyrians, different steles of the Assyrians to find names of kings, whether they be Babylonian, Assyrian, Israelite kings, etc. You could look up things that have been found in Kemet that have prophets' names on them and stuff like that, and have been dated back not just by Israelis, but have been dated by other persons who say, yes, this goes back to there. You can look up in the Sea of Reeds, because it's a mistranslation. It was never the Red Sea that we went across on dry lands, but it was the Sea of Reeds, and you can look at the bottom of the Sea of Reeds still to this day. And well, I don't know if they kept it there, but they still have, they found horse hooves right down there. They found chariot spokes. They found or chariot wheels with 8 spokes, 6 spokes and 4 spokes, which only speaks of one time in history to where Kemet was actually using that particular type. All those chariots existed on the battlefield at the same time because technology was changing. So you had older stuff, newer stuff, and even new stuff that was like futuristic coming out. That matches the same time that would have been. So we see a lot of stuff and evidence is there. When we look at John, though, not only do we see that it's copied off of other things or the secret book of John, but we also see that it was actually lied about. Like we actually know that somebody was called out for forgery specifically for it, and the person eventually, they didn't give a whole confession, but they kind of admitted, they didn't want to necessarily say, but they, even towards their death, they started kind of saying, okay, well, I did a little bit here, but blah, blah. And it's like, no, if you did a little bit of changes, then how much more so? Right? So we have some of that stuff already there, right? It's more, and by the way, even that is something where many of you don't know about it, not because it's not something that hasn't been out for years. It's been out for years. You got to remember, when Rome was split up into two, right? You have Eastern Rome, and you have, Eastern Rome, and you have Western Rome. And when you have Eastern Rome, you got to recognize that Eastern Rome, right, dealing with that side of things. In Eastern Rome, you're dealing with um, what becomes Orthodox Christianity. When you're dealing with Western Rome, you're dealing with what becomes Roman Catholicism and then becomes Protestantism, right? So a lot of persons in Protestantism on Western side, Western Rome, are thinking that, oh, this stuff is just brand new. And no. In Eastern Rome, this has been known about. In Turkey, this has been known about. Ottoman Empire, this has been known about. Right? Right? We doing this weird thing now where it's like, oh, yeah, they hid this. It wasn't hidden. It was something that persons in Eastern Rome were using. And it was proven that they needed to stop using it. Are there still some persons who consider themselves to be extreme Orthodox, right? Or maybe not consider themselves, but are considered to be extreme Orthodox, who probably still try to use some of these things here from time to time? Yeah, but it's been disproven, or it's been something that we've looked at as not being accurate quite a while ago, right? Even when you look at the dates of it, by the way, and where it was written, which, by the way, doesn't necessarily mean anything, but this is just one part of evidence as well. It was not written by persons who were Israelite, which, believe it or not, everything except for one book in the Bible, right, or at least as far as your 66 books, everything was written by an Israelite, right? Every single thing. No. It wasn't about it. No. Every single book. Or if it was Timothy, Timothy, who was half Israelite anyways, but Timothy was writing what Paul was saying, right? So everything that you're using to put together is written by Israelite, usually to Israelite leadership that's still there, or to persons who have been given the baton and telling them how they need to make sure they focus in and still keep things together. Don't forget, Paul even says in Galatians chapter 2 that he double checked to make sure what he preached to the Gentiles was the same thing that was being preached to Israel, right? So these are things that we know for certain, right? So there should be a certain tenor, there should be a certain theme, there should be a certain things that's coming back on, right? There should be a certain thing that's coming back on. So, and all these things that we're talking about and speaking on, a lot of persons are unaware of how this stuff operates and how that stuff works. And what's actually being shared, what's being spoken, and what we've learned, right? So first of all, so the Book of John, you know, I mean, we could even go into other things or whatever, right? But it's once again, it's even to show how Orthodox Christian it is, or how Eastern Rome it is. It's written in Kemet by persons who were actually Coptic at the time. Right now, they're so-called Coptic. There's actually doubt that they might have been Coptic, or they're persons who were Greeks who started calling themselves Coptic. But it's not written. It's written by Coptic persons who we already know are into some Alexandrian Bible stuff. And if you write the NIV, if you know about the Alexandrian Bible, then we know the NIV takes out things, removes things because of their belief system and what, and the fact that they don't actually believe in the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Some of them don't even believe that Christ was in the flesh, and that He died, and that He has risen, right? Which is where you get a lot of persons that are now calling themselves Arabic, what used to just mean nomadic, but now they're saying they're Arabic or Muslim, who will say, yeah, you know, we don't believe the same thing, even your belief says it. Well, you might not realize it, that they're looking at a version of the Bible that's not real, that's not true, that has been dismissed, and that they're talking about something that is more of the so-called Coptic or Greek mindset that goes to Alexandrian believers who didn't even believe that Christ was one and the same as the Father. That's why when you read the NIV, you're going to see a lot of verses missing, or you'll see even in the footnotes a lot. They'll say, you know, this really didn't happen, or somebody wrote this in, or we took this out because that's because of their belief system. So the Gnostic is once again taking a bunch. The so-called Gnostic of today is trying to say everybody was Gnostic back then, and everybody, right? And the real persons who knew, they had the right teaching. When the reality is okay, well then you can't talk about Paul, because Paul says that if we preach anything but Christ and Him crucified, that we're off. You see how that works? So that part is there. You said no works, according to what? Faith without works is what? I'm gonna come to the next part of it, by the way, but we'll just deal with this real quick. Faith without works is what? Faith without works gives life. Faith without works makes us alive. Faith without works makes us quick or quicker. Yeah. Hear me out. Because we can go to Romans 3, 1 and 2 before that. Then we can go to Romans chapter 7 after that. Right? There's context. It's written within a whole character, a whole epistle, a whole letter. It's not just by itself, right? Why is it that Romans 5:1 is Romans 5:22 is so important? Right? Or 5:23 is it? 5:23. That all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of Elohim. And so why do we need Christ? Romans 5:8 to commit this. I'm sorry, Romans 3:23. Right? That Romans 5:8. Why do we need Romans 5:8? That Yahushua the Messiah commended His love to us, that while we were yet sinners, He died for us. And in Romans 6:23, the wages of sin is death. Why are the wages of sin death? Yes, the gift, but cancel it out. The gift of Elohim is eternal life, right? But why are the wages of sin death in the first place? You said it's all in Paul's epistles? Okay, so you're not going to give me that. Romans 3:23, the same epistle, which, by the way, Romans is actually one of the last books, if not the last letter or the last book that he ever wrote, because he's an older man back then. They put it right after Acts because Acts are having questions about how law works and how it should be used with those who are being grafted in. They put Romans right behind it in your Bible, not because it's actually chronologically in order, but because it's considered to be the Christology. They want to study how Christ moves and works and continues to be a bridge to those who are coming in. This is one of the greatest things you could ever read. And as much as you're not going to, you're going to keep talking about all these different things. Romans chapter, well, your Lord and Savior says this. I'm sorry. Actually, you know what? See, you guys know this already. We have to do this like at least once a live session. I have to go to these same verses on the Sermon on the Mount, our sweet spot. But it is what it is. So I'm going to answer the other question having to do with the book of Thomas, as you were asking about, as you were asking about in a second for the other person. But let's just do this real quick, because you're coming on here and you try to take over the screen and all this, but you won't be honest, or you won't be not honest. You won't be righteous. You want everybody to stop everything for you, but you can't just answer a question for me. I've answered your question, but you still won't allow me to answer it. You're like, oh, Jesus Christ, blah, blah, as if the letter J existed at the time of Christ, or the time of Paul, or the time of the so-called Christians that existed back then anyways. It didn't even exist, so that can't be his name, right? It's not just a transliteration thing. It means half man, half Zeus. Pegasus is the horse of Zeus. Dionysus is the son of Zeus. Dionysus is the daughter of Zeus. Perseus is the son of Zeus, right? Zeus is Zeus. Jesus is half man, half Zeus. He's a demideus, and that's given to him his nickname because, as far as the culture that was taken over at that time and rewriting the Bible, they look at him as, okay, he's not of this earth, but he's of this earth at the same time. Who do they worship? Zeus. Anybody who's a son of Zeus but is of the earth, they are not a deity or a deus, or as you would call today, a god, right? But they would be half man and half divinity, right? And that's how they describe it. So you're not even in the ballpark as far as the person that you're saying about the person you're describing. They wouldn't have described Christ like that. They couldn't have described Christ like that. They didn't have the mindset that you had. They didn't have the word usage that you had. They didn't have the belief system that the believers of the time, followers of the way, had. So that being so that's number one, right? They didn't worship Jesus or Jesus or half man, half Zeus. They didn't. They worship Yehoshua, or some of you dialect-wise, Yeshua, Yahushua, Yahusha, Yahabashai, etc., right? But they worship somebody different by name. Number one, all right? Number one. Number two, Christ himself says this, and you can be mad at me all day, but this is when I be trying to tell you, you need to be mad at Christ. Or you need to be mad at your pastor who said that he knew Christ enough to teach you about him and then didn't teach you about him, or her. He said the name wasn't changed due to translation, right? It's changed to remove what it means, right? So you can't talk about transliteration there, because transliteration, they're talking about half man, half Zeus. That's not transliteration, right? Even if you want to use, for example, Yeshua, yeah. So you say, well, they put an IE there for yeah. Yeah, they didn't put a J. The J didn't exist. But you're saying, well, the J is just IE. No, it's not. But okay, if you want to say that, so far, let's just say so far, so great. Yeah, Yeshua, yes, us. All right? Now watch this. Sh is the next character in Hebrew. Sa is the next character in Greek. So let's say they're supposed to match. Roll me for a second. Let's just say they're supposed to match. Well, then what's the next character after that? In Greek, they say uah, which is where you get W. It's actually a W sound if you're talking about it from the Gullic or the Germanic way of writing it. But it's basically W. W. When you say W, if you say U, right? If you were to make a U sound or U sound, you don't say U. If you notice, slow it down, you say uah, uah. You can't help it. If somebody say what, I'm sorry, for a W rather. If somebody says W and you trying to say W, you have to say what. You don't say what. It's really hard. I'm still even saying what. It's really hard to say without going what. Because that's the character. What. That's what you learn. So Yeshua's name should actually be spelled, if you're spelling it that way, or I'm sorry, well, we shouldn't be spelling anything, but if you're writing it out, it should be written out as YESHU, because, or W, excuse me, YESHW. Like there's a W, that's two V's, there's W, two U's. If you round it out, it's W. If you make it pointed, it's double V, W, W, right? So you should spell it out YESHW. Y-E is right, yeah, Y-E, S-H, W. We don't do that, of course, because we're going by phonetic. We think that the phonetic way of writing it is actually the way the characters sound. Okay, but let's just go through it. Y-E, yeah, okay, you have yeah, Yeshua, Y-E, or I-E or Y-E, okay. Then sh and sa, okay, maybe. But then here's the deal. We got a problem, because now when you say uah, right? If you're gonna say uah, here's the deal. We got a problem, because if it's Yeshua, then how do we get Jesus? Because even if you say, well, see, the u is the same as the uah, but where you get this from at the end? So it should be Yeshush. And not even that. Y'all don't even do that. Y'all just go Yeshush. Is that correct? Has anybody ever heard any of that? No. It's not even correct. And I'm doing a whole lot of stuff, bending the language just to make that kind of work, to where you get kind of sort of close. It's not proper transliteration. It's not for transliteration. They call them Jesus. Half man, half Zeus, and some of you believe it means praise Zeus. Either way, we know Zeus is at the end. So they're calling him Zeus. They're not calling, now really he should actually be Yehoshua, right? Or some of you still doing the wah instead of the, not realizing it's still uah. So it's you're writing that like W, but it's really W. That's where you're getting it from. So you're still doing the same thing they say when they say Yeshua. You're just saying Yahushua, right? Which is closer, because at least you're putting the he in there, right? But it's not proper. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of you may not. But long story short, it's not transliteration. That's not how you even sound his name. So now let's do this real quick. Before you go there, you're probably already gone. I know the moderators have dealt with you. Thank you, moderators, for doing so. But just in case you're still listening, and then I can go back, and just in case somebody is, we have to do this at least once once every live session, unfortunately. How you doing, Brother Rodney? How you doing, Hebrew and Richmond? How you doing, Sparkle? Thank y'all for being on. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for liking. Thank you for the kind words, right? And thank you for being part of the community. How you doing, Bajan? Bajan Robbie. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So let's look at this too. Okay, you guys ready? Let's keep on looking. So now, next thing up. Our Messiah. You say he's your Messiah too. You say he's your Christ. You say he's the anointed. Okay, cool. What does the anointed one say? What does Messiah say in the Sermon on the Mount concerning law? How you doing, Brother Rodney, if I didn't say so already? What does our Messiah say concerning law? Well, we always go to a big three. There's a bunch of others that we can put in there as well. But let's just go to Matthew chapter 5, verses 10 through 12. Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20. And Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. They go like this. Matthew chapter 5, verses 10 through 12. It's if somebody comes against you and lies on you for Yehoshaphat's name's sake, for his authority's sake, because you speak the same thing that the prophets did before you, then when they do so, you should rejoice and be exceeding glad, because they're doing the same thing to you that they did to the prophets that came before you. So when that happens, we should what? We should rejoice and be exceeding glad. When somebody comes on and they say, I can't stand you, and you're wrong, and you're a heathen, and you're a non-believer because you say that you're speaking what the prophet spoke, and you're saying we should follow the law according to Christ, right? According to Christ. When persons come on and they're upset at me and they say that I'm a non-believer and say all these nasty things towards me because I'm preaching what I'm preaching. If I'm preaching what the prophets preached, Christ said I should rejoice when you guys do that, and I should be exceeding glad, because that's what was done to the prophets before him and before them and before me. So Christ says I should be happy when you do that. Then we go to Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 through 20. And just in case I wasn't on that and didn't get that, he makes it a point to come back to that, circle back around, and he says, verse 17, that he did not come to destroy the law nor the prophets, the same ones that we should be preaching what they preach. He said came not to destroy, but that it might be fulfilled. Now, what a lot of persons do, right, whether it just be through what we might call ignorance, or whether it's through being dismissive or not knowing any better, what persons will do is they'll say, oh, okay, so he said it's fulfilled. That means it's over. No. When you look up that word even in the Greek, you'll discover that word means to be put into effect. It means to live inside of it. It means for you to, for it to live inside of you. It means for it to be done. And yes, you could even say end, but even the word end they're using is the end as far as the direction. Okay? So all right, cool. So we got that. We recognize what that is. We have that in our mindset. We got that. All right. So that's Matthew 5:17, Matthew 5:18. Then it says, until heaven and earth passes, we shouldn't change the most minuscule of measurements, nor even the way it's written. Matthew chapter 5, verse 19 comes behind that and says, those who teach others not to live by the law and do not live by the law, they are considered to be the least in the kingdom. But those that live by the law and teach others how to live by it themselves, they are considered to be the greatest in the kingdom. And then Matthew 5:20 says that you should know the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees. That's right. If they hate you, remember who they hated first. Right. Right. Oh yeah. With the permit. Right. So, and all those different things, you have to recognize what's going on. And you have to recognize if you, and then Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. It comes right behind that. It says that do unto others as you want done unto you, but the part nobody ever adds on to that is do unto others as you want done unto you. Why? For this is the law and the prophets. Do unto others as you want done unto you. Why? Because, or how do we do that? By knowing the law and the prophets. If we don't know the law and the prophets, then we don't know what's going on. So the other stuff I was going to get into, you kind of got dismissed because you were very rude and you weren't willing to learn. If you're listening, that's great. If not, somebody got that for themselves. I see you, brother. You ain't lying. Right? All right. Okay. So now back to the second part. somebody was asking about now the book of Thomas. The book of Thomas, which is supposed to be a lost book. Now, I'm not saying Thomas never wrote an epistle. I'm not saying that Thomas never wrote any writings, but we don't know for certain that he did. Number one, because we don't see the same things that all the apostles use as far as signature, and saying that he, an apostle of Yehoshua, did this, etc., etc. We don't see those things when we get into these so-called books of Thomas, but there's two of them that float around. One of which automatically disqualifies itself because it starts talking about the life of Christ as a child, and that it starts saying that Christ basically was burning persons up and offering them with like the snap of a finger and all types of stuff or whatever, because they simply didn't believe who he was, which once again, signature. Have we ever seen any scripture that says Christ off somebody specifically just because they didn't believe him? Right? Matter of fact, he was getting beat up. How many persons did he off? There were demons inside persons. How many persons did he off that had demons in them? There were religious leaders who were coming to him in the middle of the night and were trying to go ahead and get favor from him. How many did he take the life of? You see, we have a problem already because something's wrong. Also, too, it's attempting to give you something about his childhood, but it's also calling him God and things like that in the original and stuff like that. We know that's not original. So there's some things where we just have to discount one of them as soon as it starts talking. I haven't read all of it, but I've actually done a couple of times like books on tape, listened through, and it's crazy. And it was known to be it's also a known forgery. Literally, we know that it was forged. So when they say it was written by John, we know that it was forged under that name, or not by John, by Thomas. We know it was forged under that name. It was not even written close to the time that Thomas would have lived. So we have to already move that one to the side. The other one is a little closer, but we have a problem with it because it doesn't necessarily say who wrote it. It's just called the Book of Thomas, and even with that, it has just nothing more than out of order. It has just nothing more than a bunch of things that are quoted from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in no particular order. Sometimes it even gets the scriptures wrong, which means that somebody's probably coming up from their memory, does pretty well with it, but doesn't know all of it enough to make sure that it can be used properly. So we kind of leave that one alone too. So yeah, so the books of John, the secret book of John, and the two books of Thomas, as well as others, there's persons who've asked before about Adam and Eve, the so-called thing of Adam and Eve. Number one, if it's called Eve, we know that it's not original, right? Persons who say, oh, what about the book of Adam and Eve? It can't be original because her name's not Eve, or her title's not even Eve. If you recall, Adam means man, right? And he's given help me, I am God, or help me would be what she would have been called originally. So we already know it's off. Number one, because Eve comes from evening, dealing with them worshiping the moon Ishtar. Which, by the way, can I also just put this out real quick? Because for whatever reason, persons be trying to get everybody off track, especially those of us who got calendars and stuff too. It shouldn't be a thing, but that being said, can I just put this out here real quick? I don't care who's saying this stuff. The new moon was on Sunday, so you were in basically the last month leading up into. Hold on. No, I'm about to lie to you. Sorry, we got one more month after this. We have one more month after this before we get into our new year. Excuse me. Right? We're still in 5786. But so my bad. My apologies. But yeah, but the new moon started on Sunday. So Sunday evening. So that means Monday evening is the second day, Tuesday evening, right? Wednesday evening, Thursday evening, Friday evening, Saturday evening at 6 p.m. or at sundown, whichever you prefer to go by. That's going to be your Shabbat if you're going by the Hebrew calendar. If you're going by your regular calendar, then that's Friday. So hey, some of you kind of do that anyways. Friday and Saturday, you kind of right Friday evening into Saturday, you take off anyway. So there you go. But I've been seeing some stuff floating around. So that's why I put the little thing out. I was like, I don't know where this stuff be coming from. Even some of the persons posting it that are, have like called me up and asked me about the stuff and when is it? And I've been like, no, this is the calendar right here. And I made sure I even put up because I don't always do this because I just believe the word, and every time I check it, it's been 100% right. Hundreds of times I've checked it, so I don't even put the stuff out anymore. But I even put a post on there so y'all could see. I was in Baltimore at the time, so I made sure I put up Baltimore. When was the new moon, and it shows you clearly like the 0% was I know we've been throwing something else out there, but that's inaccurate too. Just to put that out there. Right. So yeah. So we started the new month. So that means it's gonna be 4 weeks of that. So we're in week one. There's gonna be 3 more weeks, and then after you get to the fourth week, add like two. Some it can be like 1 to 3 days depending on the calendar, depending on the moon. But if you usually add like about 2 days or so, and then do 4 weeks again and add 2 days, you're pretty much gonna be on point, no matter what. But you got to move your first day of the week to whenever the moon is. All right. So I just wanted to put that out there. That was weird that I saw that floating around and persons keep doing that. It is what it is. Right. If certain persons, they're going to have to, we got to get that together, especially if you're going to be sending it to SOC folk. I don't like that when you messing with our people like that. But anyways, that is what it is. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. But yeah. So, I mean, how you doing, Lon? Thanks for being on. So let's see. Where are we at? Question wise, I don't know if they're because we had the other one taken down, so I might not know what questions. So if you come back on, if you have other questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to let them fly. We still got like another half hour or so. No, you move to the first month every. You move to the first day. So like let's say so if there's 30 days in a month, let's say we're in a month that has 30 days, where you're gonna go 28 days, so 4 weeks, and then you're going to go 2 days. As soon as those 2 days are up, you don't go day number 3 on the next day. You just go back to the first day. You go back to 1. Okay. So, for example, on the calendar, you always have to go back. You just keep Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, no matter what. For us, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then we go 1, 2, and if the new moon happens on what would be the third day, we don't say 1, 2, 3. We say 1, 2. Okay, it's a new moon, first day. So we go right back to the first day. How you doing, Chica? If you were trying to get, we'll be in Michigan for on May 30th, and hopefully a couple of days more. Matter of fact, I'm supposed to talk to somebody about a couple of days more to see if we can partner up and do some stuff for some what do we call it? To do some stuff for Pentecost for Shabbat. But I travel quite a bit. Right now I'm in Maryland, so you wouldn't be able to find this right now. But yeah, but we'll try to be in the D for May 30th. And those of you, so I know we got a lot of persons around there. We have cats in Wisconsin, we got cats in Canada, we got cats in Ohio, Illinois, right? So if you want to start getting your stuff together, coming around there, it'll be May 30th. I don't know if we're gonna do a thing of trying to get everybody to meet at the same hotel or anything like that. Maybe we'll do something, but that'll be for, we'll leave that personally. I think we might actually come up that way because we probably got to bring some stuff with us, or we probably got to get a bigger vehicle. So we probably won't even be staying inside a hotel. But yeah, we'll let you guys know more about that. By the way, once again, if you're in any places, especially places I mentioned earlier today, but if you're in any of the places tonight, 9 p.m. New York time, I want to have a meeting with everybody. If you can give me 9 p.m., if you can give me like 30 minutes of your time, I want to make sure I run some stuff by you. I know it's not SOC community meeting yet. We do that every first Thursday of each month at 9 p.m. New York time. But if you can give me your 9 p.m. New York time tonight for just about 30 minutes, I want to make sure that we have some stuff. So if we have your email address and everything, and you get emails from us, you should be able to get an email from us. It's going to be important as far as making sure we're meeting up, whether I'm there or not, knowing persons that are in your area, all that great stuff. Okay, but we're going to put some information out and talk about different things, and let you guys know who makes phone calls and does stuff behind the scenes, all that great stuff, so everybody can be ready to go. Okay, so if you can give me that tonight, I would very much so appreciate it. And be able to get you some information that I think will help you out in what we're doing in this season and this year of hashtag We Be the Nation. All right. So thank you for that. If you can do that, if you can give us that, I would greatly appreciate it. I really, really would. Okay. let's see. So we follow. It's the lunar moon. Well, I didn't even know that they call it lunar versus full moon, but I'm assuming. If you know what they say about people that assume. But I'm assuming that what we're talking about there is talking about, do we look at the full moon at the beginning of the year, or the so-called new moon, right at the beginning, or sorry, the beginning. Well, the beginning of the year too, but the beginning of each month. The beginning of each month is actually when the moon is at zero. It's settled, right? Zero. So basically, and by the way, it's some persons would argue that you should be able to see it, because they say Moses and them only saw it. The Bible doesn't tell us that, by the way. But a lot of persons say, if you can't see it with your natural eye, then it's not a new moon. And the reason they'll tell you that, they'll say, well, if you can't see it with your natural eye, then how do you know it's a new moon? And Moses and them, they wouldn't have had that technology. They didn't have all this stuff back then. Except the problem is that Moses was raised in Kemet. And in Kemet, did they know when the new moon was there? Did they have the stuff down to where, even though they didn't have, at least so we think, they didn't have the technology that others had, that didn't have, right? Others didn't have it yet, but did they not have the mathematic skills to be able to literally build their pyramids to match the stars? If this is who Moses was raised by, in the palace, by the way, so he got the best teacher, right? This is before schools, before universities. He got palace teaching because he had to be in line. At some point, he might even have been in a very, outside chance type of way, but he had to be even ready for the throne. So he was raised like that. He was trained. So yeah, it's a weird thing that persons do, and we forget that other persons had the ability to see things and build things, different, and to have, Timbuktu. If you go there, you'll see universities that existed. What? Thousands of years ago. It's still there. Persons still living in homes that were built thousands of years ago, still there. So even though we can say some of them are crumbling, but I mean, if they're still living and using some of these places thousands of years later, I mean, there's something to that, right? There's something to that. So yeah, actually, once we had the finances, my wife had said a while ago, we're just waiting for it. We're looking at getting like a clear type tent to where you guys can always see outside, no matter where we happen to be. But trying to get a tent or something. Actually, you know what? I don't have any of them with me. I could probably just get a tent though. The fridge is probably just buy a tent. I ain't thinking about that. Just get a tent that has clear plastic, but usually they have the nets up, so when it's not a bad or whatever. But we're looking at getting something to where when it rains, I could set it up. It'll take longer for the setup, so that's gonna be crazy work. Like I might have to get somewhere an hour early just to set up the tent, and then give myself an extra 15 minutes to put the setup inside the tent. But we're looking into something like that for sure. Right, but I appreciate you. I appreciate you thinking about me and caring about me. Yeah, I'm doing fine. I got a whole bunch of layers on, from the feet to the neck. Right, my head actually stays pretty warm. I actually do pretty well in wintertime. I can't really fit hats like that anyway. My head actually does pretty warm during wintertime. So I'm fine with that. Thank you for looking out for us, though. How you doing, man? That's being part of the community. You said you have a question. We don't eat goats. Why drink goat's milk or use goat soap? Hmm. Hold on one second. Let me see something real quick. Yeah, I'm trying to see. Yeah, okay. So, are you saying that you guys personally don't eat goat, or are you talking about the Bible says we don't eat goat? Because the Bible allows goat to be eaten. So I want to make sure before I answer, are we saying specifically the Bible says somewhere we can't? Because the closest we get to that, which is not closest, the Bible does say like you shouldn't have like um, goat or meat or really adult. Put it like this: you shouldn't have the adult goat or even a kid, which once again is a baby goat, right? Sorry. So a goat or a baby goat shouldn't be put in. Okay, just personally. Okay, well you don't have to drink. Well, you don't have to. You don't have to drink. Okay, so all right, I just want to make sure. So because there is something more to what you're saying, right? So yeah, if you don't want to eat or drink goat, you don't have to. I mean, Passover lamb is required, so you eat that. But I even tell that now once again to each their own. Feel free to do whatever. If you find a scripture or you find a reason to do it, and blah blah. I know there's even persons on Passover they're vegan and they try to make Passover lamb and out of other materials outside of lamb. But I haven't found a scripture that says you can. That being said, if you do, I leave that up to you. If you guys want to share recipes and all that stuff, whatever, feel free to. I'm just saying, that might be something that I can't that being said, though, yeah. So if you don't eat goat, yeah, you don't have to eat goat or goat's milk. There's a lot of healthy things that in the odds that maybe medicinally from time to time. If you're trying to do cleansing or certain things, you might want to consider it. But yeah, if you don't like the taste of it or something like that, like you don't have to be forced. There's no law that says you must eat goat. That being said, now it does talk about if you're going to cook goat. And really, well, I can't say for sure 100% this goes for every animal, but we just kind of use it as a rule of thumb for us because it just makes sense. It says that you shouldn't take like adult, basically like adult goat and mix it with child goat. In other words, like you shouldn't have, like you shouldn't take goat's milk. I think that's what it talks about specifically. And don't put the adult goat inside, right? Or don't put like a baby goat or inside of the milk or something like that. You're putting the two together. You shouldn't put mother and child or adult and child together. So it's like the same thing as like you. So I don't really see this in the law per se, right? But I kind of use the same thing now, where I used to do like a lot of chicken and egg together combinations, and now I don't eat the two together because it's the baby and the adult, right? Or if I'm having, if you do beef or whatever, and you're doing like the baby, I don't do baby and adult stuff like that. I don't do lamb and I won't do lamb and like goat's milk or something together. Those are things that the Bible tells us not to do that, especially in the preparation of cooking meals, right? So we shouldn't do that. But as far as if you don't like goat, you know, like there's some persons that don't like lamb and they just only eat it once a year as a Passover. Then after that, they're like, yeah, but I'm not making it. I don't like it. I don't like the smell. I'm like, blah blah blah. Hey, you don't have to. It's like you don't have to eat burgers if you don't like it. Right? We definitely don't eat pork, of course, right? I'm just gonna throw that in there. You don't eat turkey. You do eat turkey. Like you don't have to. You said you feel like goats eat like pigs do. So it's depending on how they're raised. But yeah, depending on how they're raised, yeah, goat is closer to a pig. It doesn't quite eat everything the pig does, but yeah, especially if you see them in captivity or if they're in a place to where they just live in a really bad part of the outskirts of cities and they don't really have natural things to eat where they come to eat trash. I mean, I can say that kind of about anything. Chickens will do that if you don't take care of them correctly. Like you have to make sure you move chickens around and not keep them in the same place. Even if you're somebody who has gates and stuff like that, if you get to a point where you can afford it, you try to get like a huge place. Matter of fact, they have some of those buildings where they actually move the chickens around, right? And that's even though that's their way of trying to also pass off that they're free range, but it's actually better to move the buildings around when chickens move the building because that way they're not eating the feces because they'll eat feces all day if you let them, right? Like they just try to eat whatever, not just worms and grills and blah blah. They'll eat whatever is there. So if you leave them in the same place they're pooping, they'll poop in the water and keep drinking the water. Like they'll poop in the they'll poop around their food. They try not to, but if they I raised chickens and first ones I ever raised. I had to learn, I didn't have space for them like I needed, so I got a bunch of big boxes and put them together inside the house at first. And so, when they were little, that made sense. And even no matter how big the boxes were, when they got big, it was like, oof, like they disgusting. You got to give them space, or they will just do whatever. But it's the same thing with anybody, believe it or not. With rats. Matter of fact, there's a famous experiment that was done with lab mice or lab rats. I can't remember which one. where they were trying to figure out about like conditions for that D R word that's rhymes with rubs. They were trying to do an experiment and stuff, and they found that that if you put stuff and you make it unclean, the rest of it, whatever, if you give them clean water, they'll right, and they have no option, they'll take the clean water. If they have no option, they'll take water laced with rugs in them. But then if you give them clean options, a bunch of activity, a bunch of things they can do besides it, they'll try their best to stay away from the water because they know the water messing them up. Or if you give them different waters, they'll go to the clean one every time because they don't want to be, whatever. So a lot of that stuff comes from the environment too. So that's one of the reasons why we're trying our best to, really, especially this year, we want to make sure at least the fruits and veggies. We can try and send some stuff to you guys from the land and stuff, but we really want to start attempting to make sure we know what we're eating. But it also goes with livestock. Depending on how you raise the livestock, is how the livestock will eat. So, pigs will eat clean. Believe it or not. I mean, we still shouldn't have pork. But I'm just saying, believe it or not, swine will eat clean if you make sure it's clean. Like they'll get to a place like pigs actually don't want to be around squat. Like if they have a choice, right? If they have a choice, if they're raised in captivity, they'd rather be around clean. But if you give them dirt, whatever, especially if they're gonna be outside, a lot of times they're going and wallowing in mud because hey, shoot, they need to be out of the sun. They don't sweat. So they get that mud on them, right? Like so, there's a lot. But if you give a pig a chance to live inside, and if you try to take it outside and try to get it to go in the mud, it doesn't like the mud. It doesn't want to deal with the mud because it's clean. So it's very different dynamic. I know like even Jamaica. You go down there and you'll see chickens. Chickens just roam around. They just walk. You go to Ghana, chickens just walk. They walk around, and they're actually very clean. But if you put them in a pen and you don't make sure that they get activity and make sure that they're cleaned up after, or at least can move away from the dirty parts, or you just keep giving them the same water over and over again and don't change it up, it's gonna get nasty. So that's kind of with anything, but yeah, there are a lot of goats, especially from where we're getting them from. Like think about it, like when they be like a goat will eat a can, kinda, sorta. But even the ones that eat cans, they eat cans. Somebody's in their environment, and you're able to have a can, or to have to have even just pellets. They'll take the pellet every time. And thank you, Sister Miguel. It's 11:11 day if you want. Not sure if you might have got cut off earlier. I thought we got cut off. So there are there's a lot of different things. Like even those for those of you when we were in Arizona last year for Passover, if you saw I'm not sure if you had a chance to see. They're not called pigs, even though they're basically pigs, but I forget what they're called now. Cavaliers or something like that, whatever they're called. They actually, and they're more like warthogs. Not warthogs, but they're more like the feral pig. To me, they're feral pigs. They don't call them pigs, but whatever they are. But they roll in huge groups, stuff like that, or whatever. And yeah, because of what they live in, they're dusty and everything. But if you watch them, they're not really dirty like pigs that are in captivity. Animals in the wild, even though they have a smell because they outside all the time, and they have musk and stuff like that, but we just automatically assume all of them want to be dirty and stuff all the time. A lot of them want to be clean. How many times you seen a lion cleaning itself or different things like that? So yeah, depending on where the animal comes from, it can be. But once again, that's why we want to try and make sure that we raise our own food as soon as possible. GYH, et cetera. Okay, well, we're talking about what we're talking about. It's Q&A day. We're almost finished, by the way. Thank you for being on. Thank you, guys. I apologize. We started late. I kind of tried to put some stuff out early to let y'all know it's going to be running late. And then we had to move from where we were. So we lost a lot of time today. So I apologize if there's questions, comments, and concerns I didn't get to. Or for persons who might watch the rest of this later on and realize that we came right back on or we never left on some platforms. My apologies for not getting to your stuff today. Perfectly, we'll get to it tomorrow. But we still have a little bit of time. How you doing, Butter? And everybody who's on. So, any other questions, comments, or concerns? We got a little bit of time left. Got about 10 to 15 minutes left. If not, I will not hold you. And probably because of the wind, I'm pretty sure we probably won't be able to do a shout out today. So my apologies for that. I mean, you know what? Well, we can do a shout out. It'll just be you'll be hearing the wind, and you can look at the house behind me, I guess. But the music won't play. So I guess everybody can do a shout out today. But any other questions, comments, or concerns? Or did I miss anything? I can't tell. It's hard for me to see today. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? If not, well, that's all that I have. So once again, my apologies for everything, for running late and all that stuff. I'll try to pop up a couple times. I mean, it's going to be Patreon stuff mainly anyways. If you happen to see it, you happen to see it. If not, don't worry about it. But we'll see you later. Okay, cool. I will, where are we going? Something I was going to say. Oh, so tonight, hashtag Real Talk live session in the evening will be on at 8 p.m. New York time. At 9 p.m. New York time, lottie dottie everybody, if you get the email. If we don't have your email, by the way, make sure you reach out and let me know. I'll try to do the shout out stuff again today. So even if you want to just be part of the shout out today and do what everybody else does, we have music playing, but today the wind's too windy and it's supposed to pick up. It was actually supposed to pick up by noon my time. So in about 45 minutes, but obviously it's been going, so that means it's going to get worse in a little bit. So we'll let you guys still see, we'll still let you guys see the background and everything, and you can do a shout out. Just do what everybody else does. If all platforms today will do a shout out for everybody, why not? But if you'd like to be part of the shout out, just go ahead and roll with us today and put your information in. We'll tell you how that works in a little bit. But for tonight, we'll meet up at 8 p.m. New York time for the live session. 9 p.m. New York time, we'll meet up for SOC community meeting. Everybody come on board, come on in. We're going to talk about making sure that we get some times and dates for starting next week. I'd like to make sure that we're talking to persons in your particular regions on a regular basis, even if they're just quick meetings. At least so you guys know what's going on, and we can give assignments so you can know who talks about the persons behind the scenes. We even have some persons who are willing to let us use their land a little bit if we end up in different places. So we're excited about that. And those who have said that they allow us to do that in times past for just a little bit of different events or different meetups or whatever, we might take you up on those offers. Somebody just told us they let us go to Georgia. We've had persons before in like Mississippi tell us we can do that. Persons in Detroit have told us we can do that. Persons in Maryland have told us we can do that before. So we're going to really start looking at getting together, and I don't want to just keep saying these things. We need to get these things done. So for tonight, everybody, if you can be on everybody, I will try to record it, even though it's not going to be that long or much or whatever, but I will try to record it just to make sure if somebody says they missed it, they can ask me for the link or ask you for the link. I'll make sure I put the link in the description tonight. I'll put the link in the description before we start the meeting tonight. But that's important if you can make it. Please, ma'am, please, sir. Don't need to say anything at all. I'm just going to come on and be like, here's this group. We're looking at trying to do blah, blah. These are the persons who are in charge. May even put their information on the screen for you guys tonight. Here's the next person. Here's the next place. Here's the next group. Here's the next person. This person said we can use da-da-da-da, et cetera, et cetera. There's when I'll be traveling through, kind of give you guys a heads up on some things that we know at least will probably be around on such and such date, et cetera, et cetera. Here's what they might be doing in Florida. Here's what they might be doing in Cali. Here's what they might. So if you can, be on that, I want to just throw some of that stuff out with you guys tonight. And therefore you can write it down or record it yourself, whatever the case might be, and be able to get some of these things down. Then tomorrow we're going to have our live session again. It'll be Q&A session. Prayerfully I'll be able to be on time and then not have to be told to move for whatever reason, right? But we'll be on tomorrow for the live session, 8 a.m. New York time. And then after, besides some calls and stuff got to do for the day, we'll have our evening session. Before our evening session at 8 p.m. New York time, don't forget sisters at 7 p.m. New York time. We have a women's meeting. And then for those on Saturday, all the stuff that we normally do, you already know what's up. Let's not forget too that we are also going to have our international meeting. And brothers, we're going to have our men's meeting that got moved. It'll be this Saturday coming up. In the international meeting, we're going to have some stuff. So I'm going to actually try to make a new. I don't know how exactly to do this, but for those of you who are on, I'm gonna try to make this work. So for the international meeting, while we're gonna have stuff on recording on YouTube, but for the international meeting, while we're gonna have, it possibly that you might be able to see and hear this on like TikTok or something as well. But more than likely, instead of TikTok, we're gonna actually use WhatsApp. So for the teaching, I'm gonna use WhatsApp so that persons in different countries will be able to join us and be able to be on with us. So we probably won't use Zoom for the international meeting. We'll use WhatsApp. So if you don't have the WhatsApp app, right? If you don't have WhatsApp is the name of the app. If you don't have the WhatsApp app, you might need to be. I will try to still see if I can put it on Zoom, right? But I'm gonna try to use the WhatsApp app so that way everybody around the world has an opportunity. So what I'm going to attempt to do, I'm gonna need help to do it, but I think I got it for the most part. What I'm going to attempt to do is make a WhatsApp group thing, and if you already have the app, and if you don't have the app, I would ask you to try to see if you can download it at least by early this evening, because I'm gonna come on later on WhatsApp and I'm gonna make a new group, but it's gonna be called the international group, right? So if you want to be on the international meeting stuff, if you want to meet and talk to persons, if you want to see some of the persons in other places that are worshiping, if you want to see some of the pastors that are learning from us, if you want to see some of the persons that you guys are helping out with your donations, like in places in Rwanda, things like that, make sure that you have the WhatsApp app together. And what, because all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through all my contacts, and basically if I see SOC on there, I'm going to try my best to go ahead and put you in the group. And I'm not sure if you have to accept it or not, so I got to find that out. But I'm gonna just basically go through all my contacts that I have on my phone. I'm gonna put you right in the WhatsApp thing, and from there you should be able to get your, you should be able to join. So we'll start at 2 p.m. New York time. I've already talked to all of them who are going to be ahead of us. Some of them coming on midnight their time, so they'll be on the day um, after hours. They'll already be in the after, but they're going to come on, and some will come on hours ahead in Africa. Some are going to be hours ahead, or the day before in Pakistan. We'll try to shoot it out to those in the Caribbean. We'll try to shoot it out to some others in Africa. Some of the Rwandan brothers and sisters, maybe they may not make this one, but we'll give them an opportunity to be on as well. But everybody who I have your number, I'm just going to go ahead and put you in that list. Okay, so if I don't have if you have the WhatsApp app by this evening, then prayerfully what will happen is you'll get some kind of notification, and I'll send a message out too to make it known this is the international, SOC international meeting. Okay, so prayerfully you guys will get that, and prayerfully you guys will have that. If you would like somebody, if you have somebody in your family that is learning or listening, or sometimes, and you want them to be part of it or whatever, feel free. If they're okay with it, feel free to let us have that information, or maybe share the information with them, and then they can come on as well. Now, so we will still have it on YouTube, and we will try to still see if we can do it on Zoom as well. But I'm letting you know our focus, because I'm be using this device. This device works where I can put you on Zoom, but also I can't hear that well out of this device. I'm gonna try to use a Bluetooth thing for this. But that being said, just in case, you might want to use WhatsApp if you want to talk or repeat after me or ask questions or try to, when we go through the Hebrew characters and stuff. And as well as you might be able to talk to others, and even if you can't see them, you can at least be able to hear them. If you're on Zoom, you'll still be able to hear. You might not be able to see them, but if you'd like to see some of the pastors and some of the persons who we've been training for years, some of them might even have, we fell off a little bit as far as lost contact, and now we're just getting back in sync. But yeah, so we've been doing some things for a while. So as we grow, if you'd like to be part of that, and maybe some of you might even behind the scenes want to help out with things and stuff like that, some of them are still learning and growing. Just to give you a heads up. That's why I said we got to make sure that we're ready to be a bridge, right? There's some persons coming in and they're getting into, okay, we don't say Jesus, and they're getting this all, okay, we don't do Christmas, blah blah, because they learn from a very Eurocentric perspective, as many of us did, right? So I want you to know that going in. Doesn't mean that we're changing our views and stuff, but if they happen to say something, or they happen to say, we praise Jesus or something, recognize that you're still dealing with persons who are learning and are going along the way. You said you tried to download. What's up? Okay. Well, you were able to get on Zoom, I believe, right? So we'll try to make sure that Zoom is up. I'll have several devices going like we always do. just be a little differently. But WhatsApp would be the best as far as I'll hear you guaranteed. I'm gonna try, like I said, I'm gonna have you on this device. So this device, which is extremely old now, but this device should be able to like Bluetooth. I gotta find my Bluetooth speaker, but or maybe I can get. I hate Bluetooth headphones, but maybe I can find a Bluetooth set of. I'll buy a set of Bluetooth headphones so I can hear you guys. But if I do that, person will be able to hear what I hear too. So our goal is to try and make it to where everybody can at least hear each other. If you're just watching later on, even if you come on Patreon later for the hashtag SOC University class portion of it, whatever, we want you to try and get an experience where it's us coming together. So it'll be a nice little meetup and things. And I'm not sure. I think we're going to. You know what? Yeah, we're gonna start a watch party again this Saturday. We're gonna go back. This is one we do once a year. So some of y'all be like, man, I've seen this 15 times with you. You're gonna see it 16. We're gonna do not Hebrew to Negroes, which is one that we've done before, long time ago. But before you do Hebrews to Negro, you should actually watch one that we watched plenty of times before and just watched last year. We watched it pretty much yearly, called Reclaiming the Throne on Tubi TV. So we're gonna bring Reclaiming the Throne, and we're gonna pause it and stop a little bit here or there. It's actually a really, really long thing, like 3 hours per episode and 3 episodes long. So we'll do that for a little while, and then after that we'll go Hebrews to Negroes, and we'll bring that back. I'm not even, I gotta stop because they used to take you down for saying that. That we had to use say H2N all the time. They were literally breaking persons down and stuff. Around that whole Kyrie Irving thing, that's what that was based off of. He literally posted the link and said y'all should watch this, and then everything went crazy. That's how his thing started. so, so, so we'll do that soon. All right, so we'll do that this Saturday. So we got a lot of stuff moving, a lot of stuff going on. For the parents, by the way, if you didn't get it, I tried to send a link out to you guys. We did Kung Fu. It was just a recording, but we did Kung Fu. Elder Maya was trying her best to see about doing French lessons again this month. She's going to start them the first Wednesday of next month. Okay, so first Wednesday of next month, I believe she was doing them at 4 p.m. New York time. I will double check with her to see, but she'll be bringing back the French classes. I will be bringing back Spanish classes and maybe even some mathematics stuff. We never started it, but I kind of put some stuff out there. We'll be bringing that stuff back too. But mine are going to have to be recorded. I'm just being honest. I can't guarantee a time. Maybe with Solomon, we'll try to get back to a specific time on Zoom. But he'll at least be doing the recordings for now. Elder Maya will be back with the French classes starting next week. And she was doing something else too. It was French and something else she was doing. But she'll be back with the French classes for the babies for sure on Wednesdays for those who are doing that. And if you want recordings of it, things of that nature, we can try to see what she's able to do. But we'll definitely have them on Zoom for you guys. All right. So hopefully you got. So if you didn't get those links, if you like that link for the Kung Fu and everything, we just went basically over the basics again and kind of got back into some stretching things. So we try to get things back on track. Patreon members, we're trying to post. Everybody, I've been trying to do more posting, trying to make sure we're posting each other's stuff. Please make sure you're sharing each other's things of that and things of that nature. But we're going to go ahead and do our shout out. So I'll explain how that works, and then we'll go ahead and take our lead. So hold on 1 second. Okay. So last thing, as we were saying, so we'll do was what we call a shout out here. Normally it's a little different because we'd be able to play some music, but it's so windy you won't be able to do so. But we'll do the shout out anyways. This is the way the shout out works. Once I finish, if you don't mind waiting until I finish, we're going to ask for you to put your information in the chat. Now, when I say your information, we do not want your phone number. We do not want your name. We do not want your email address. We do not want your residential address. If you put those things in there, probably somebody will mute you. What we would like for you to do, if possible, is we would like for you to put your information in the chat as far as your country, province, and state. And then if you don't mind, if you could also put your city in there as well. That allows us to be able to know who we're reaching when we're reaching you around the world. And also, it's a way, if you're comfortable with this, it's a way of us being able to reach out to you and make sure that we You know, thank you for being on and maybe possibly answer some more questions. See if we might be compatible one with another. You know, you become part of the SOC family, which is part of, you know, the Israelite family, which is part of the kingdom of heaven. And we want to make sure that we, you know, honor you, thank you, see if there's stuff we can do to help, and maybe see if you might want to, you know, walk a little bit, or just show up to some other things that we do, because for us it's not just virtual, it's reality. So I thank you all for being on again. We give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to Him, for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life to be honored, to the ministerial staff, moderators, SOC, Lottie Dottie, everybody. We appreciate you so very much, and we hope that your day continues to be grand, that you're able to continue to do great things, that you're able to do so without being turned down by some of these weird things that happen, some of these weird persons out here doing all this stuff. And we thank you so much. And until I have the chance to be before you again, I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we're always changing lives one mind at a time, and being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Remember, as always, beloved, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be up. Shalom, peace, take care. And no, if you want to put it in the shout out now, those of you who know how the shout out works, do what you do. And if you can just follow what everybody else is doing, and we'll use it as an opportunity to get back to you. So those who know how the shout out works, feel free to do what you do. Thank you again for being on, everybody. Like that, everybody. Thank you for dealing with the winds, to the setup, to having to relocate, to everything. I really appreciate you guys. Love y'all as always. So, like we said, just go ahead and do what you do. And those who don't know how the shout out works, you can just see what they're doing, and you can follow their lead. All praises.